All right. Say thank you for coming out. I want to call to order the meeting of November 19th, 2024, and ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent meditation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. And we'll do roll call. Well, I won't do roll call. I'm just going to say all are present except Mr. Ditmore. So we're going to vote with 6 members tonight, at least for the beginning. So first thing we're going to do, I think, is the results of the November 5th, 2024 election. You're on.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council is aware, as everyone is aware, we had an election on November 5th. Following several meetings by the Brevard County Supervisor of Elections, on November 15th, I received the certified results of the election, which are attached to the resolution that was in the agenda package. And so with your permission, I'd like to go ahead and read the votes for the candidates.
Go for it. It's on you.
Pat Bentley, 8,117. Adam Gaffney, 4,994. Austin Gaylord, 5,834. Kim McGibney, 4,744. Alexis McGuire, 5,528. Stephen Frampus, 4,995. Helen Volz, 5,396. And as was discussed earlier this year, the 3 highest vote getters would serve the 4-year terms, and the 2 lower vote getters would serve the 2-year terms. Additionally, there was a ballot question. It was concerning imposing term limits, and the ballot results were as follows. Yes is 13,012 votes. No is 1,753 votes. And so if the council can go ahead and make a motion to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-24 to approve the certified election results.
Mr. Frampus.
Second.
So I have a motion from Ms. Adams and a second from Mr. Frampus to adopt resolution number 2024-24, approving the certified results from the November 5th election. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 6-0. And now I guess we're going to break for a little presentation up front. So we're going to ask Mr. Ditmore, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Frampus, and Ms. Adams to come down. I asked.
Over my own purse, that'd be a good thing, wouldn't it? Well, everybody's down there except me, so I might as well come down.
Are we ready? Okay. So first, we have a couple of people that we want to present something. I'm facing them, so I wouldn't understand that. So we have a couple plaques that we want to give out first, and the first one's to Mr. John Ditmore, who I consider to be a friend, and has really brought a lot of insight to the council. And I told him just before the meeting, I really enjoyed working with John, and we don't always agree the same on votes, but that's okay. That's true of any of us. But I always knew he was speaking from the heart. So I really, really, as I told you, I appreciate your service to the city, and you did a great job. Thanks, man. Sad to see you go. All right, Mr. McDowell. Come on down. So we all ran together as a group out in the parking lot for 2 solid weeks, I think, or a week or so, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I learned a lot from Dan. I really enjoy the insight that you bring to it and the differences that you bring to it. We're going to miss you. We really are going to miss you. So thank you for your service to West Melbourne, and thank you for your friendship. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. All right. Are these the same or no? So we also, apparently, Steve had served previously as deputy mayor and he didn't get a gavel, so we want to make sure he gets one. So something I can say about Steve is during the discussions, and John and I actually mentioned this also before the meeting, there is no one that comes, in my view, more prepared to a meeting than Steve does. And there's no one that gets more into the details of a drawing, for example, like how many feet there is behind a bus that's got to turn around in a neighborhood, than Steve does. And that's needed. I mean, we laugh and that's funny, but those things are serious when you get into development that someone looked at that. So I really appreciate your service to West Melbourne and present you this gavel as Deputy Mayor of West Melbourne. Last but not least, the one that has a PhD next to her name and is our current deputy mayor, Miss Diana Adams, who's a good friend of mine. And I don't think there's anybody that has attended as many events as what Diana has attended outside of these 4 walls here, whether it's a grand opening or reopening as there was today. She's at that event and representing your city. And we couldn't have a better representative, I think, than Diana. So congratulations. This is your deputy mayor. And I think there's one more. I think Andrew's got a presentation.
I do. I just have to come around there. I got you.
That's right.
I hope this is attached and doesn't fall on my foot. Pat, let me get it for you. Thank you very, very much, Pat. You have served on this council since 2008. You've actually been here longer than I have. We're both getting dusty.
We are.
So for this last year, you stepped up. Your city needed you. You stepped up. You served as mayor for this last year, and we appreciate it so much. This is not a parting gift. This is just a continuing gift. I'm so glad it's not a parting gift, so thank you. You want to grab that?
I appreciate it.
Want to do this? Thank you very much, Pat. All right.
I have one last thing I want to say. I really appreciate the confidence that the folks of West Melbourne have put in me and allowing me to be your mayor. One of the greatest thrills of my life was to serve West Melbourne and then to serve as your mayor. So thank you for supporting this entire council, some of which is going out tonight. We really appreciate the support of the residents.
Thank you. Good night. Yes, she's going to swear him in. Oh, group photo.
Why don't we come back along Hey, at least she's out here to see it out.
That's all I'm making.
Okay, thank you. Right now?
Yes.
Do I sit here? Oh, she's got to get sworn in. I gotta go down there and get sworn in too, right?
Helen,
Yeah.
Helen,
Huh?
gotta be down there.
What?
Gotta be down there.
For what?
To get sworn in.
Oh. I didn't know whether she wanted all of us down there.
Congratulations, Mayor. I'll be conducting the swearing in, so I'm going to hand you the mic, and then you'll just repeat after me.
Thank you. I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and will obey the laws of the United States and the state of Florida, that I will, in all respect, observe the provisions of the Charter and the ordinances of the city of West Melbourne, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of mayor upon which I am about to enter. Thank you very much. I didn't have to say I do for this one. All right. I'll go back up to my seat.
Yes. If Pat Bentley could join me. There he is. Hi.
I have my own copy. All right.
Still need to repeat after me. I solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida,
That I will,
that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
preserve the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the city of West Melbourne,
of the city of West Melbourne,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of council
the duties of the office of council member
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter or re-enter.
Re-enter.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Austin Gaylord.
I solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida,
That I will,
in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the
of
ordinances
the city of West Melbourne,
of the city of West Melbourne,
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
of council member
of council member
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Alexis McGuire.
I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution and will obey the laws of the United States and the state of Florida. That I will, in all respects, observe the provisions of the Charter and the ordinances of the city of West Melbourne, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of council member upon which I'm about to enter.
I solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida,
That I will,
in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the ordinances
of the city of West Melbourne,
of the city of West Melbourne,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
discharge
discharge
the duties of the office
of council member
upon which I am about to enter.
of which I am about to enter. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Stephen Frampus. Oh, excellent.
Oh, you can hold this.
I solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida,
That I will,
in all respects,
observe the provisions of the Charter
observe the provisions of the Charter
and the ordinances
and the
of the
ordinances
city of West Melbourne,
of the city of West Melbourne,
and will faithfully discharge
the
duties of the office
of council member
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Great, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. We're going to be taking good care.
Got to come back, so I'm not here by myself.
Everyone needs to return.
So if the new council could take the dais?
Okay.
We'll switch seats with us.
You need to run the deputy mayor process, though, right? Will we do that before the break, or no?
No, right
All right.
after, no, right after. We dismissed now.
Deputy Mayor. Who's going?
You said deputy mayor?
Thank you.
Are we dismissing now?
No, we're going to do the deputy mayor.
You sit here. You're here for a minute. No, we'll start a break.
We'll do the roll call next.
Do a roll call. We're learning, guys.
This is my seat. It fits perfectly.
It does.
All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to select the deputy. This, I've grabbed the wrong gavel. Roll call, please.
Mayor Young,
Here.
Councilmember Bentley,
Here.
Councilmember Frampus, Councilmember Adams,
Here.
Councilmember Volz,
Here.
Councilmember Gaylord, Councilmember McGuire.
Here.
Thank you. Now we'll select the deputy mayor. All right, is there anyone here of this newly elected council, that would not like the opportunity to be the deputy mayor? If so, please speak now so that we can take you out of the bucket. All right, Alexis, you wish to remove your name?
Please.
Okay. All right, Austin as well. Anyone else want to take their name out? All right. That being said, Madam Clerk, you have ballot sheets for us, so please do not vote for those two. When you vote it, when you'll see all the names are on this sheet, just do not vote for those two. Thank you. When you're finished, just fold it in half and place it up. Either hand it back to Megan or place it up. All right, thank you. Megan's going to tally them quickly, and then when we find out who that is, we'll take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, the names will be changed, everyone will be in their correct seats, and we will get down to business. Fun is over. I haven't messed anything up yet.
Well, it's been, what, 2 minutes? So you-
Thank you. Yeah.
It's good.
You gotta love that woman. Yeah, yeah.
The new deputy mayor is Pat Bentley.
All right.
Congratulations, Pat Bentley.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll come down and Madam Clerk will change all the names. Order. Can someone, thank you, Mark. Thank you very, very much. All right. So we are all sitting up here. First of all, we're going to have a presentation. And are there representatives here from the Daughters of the American Revolution? Is there anyone here? Okay. All right. Well, we had a nice presentation for them. So much for my first official duty. Okay. There are no modifications to the agenda, and there's going to be a public hearing regarding the Minchin Grove development. So if you want to speak on the Minchin Grove development, please fill out a speaker card and put it in the brown box or hand it to the clerk right there, and you will certainly be called on to speak on the Minchin Grove. If you'd like to speak on something else, you'll be called on for that as well. It'll be later in the meeting. Please fill out a card for that as well. I'll read the statement. Christy Fisher.
It says National American Indian Heritage Month on mine.
Yes, and the Daughters of the American Revolution, we're going to accept for them. It says we're here to call them forward.
Sorry.
It's okay. Director Fisher, thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm Christy Fisher, I'm the city's planning director, and I'm going to do the presentation. I'm going to scroll here so everybody can follow. Under the agenda item for public hearings, Minton Grove is a proposed project name that the developers here with their representative to talk about, and it's agenda items 1, 2, and 3. The first one, small-scale comprehensive plan map amendment to the comprehensive plan. The second one is a rezoning, and the third is something we call preliminary plat. As I've done in the past, agenda items 1 and 2 I will present together, and if City Council can make separate motions on each of those ordinances, and then number 3 for the preliminary plat, if you can make a separate motion for that. I do have a presentation, and it's, for the audience members who were here during the Planning and Zoning Board October 21st, it's pretty much the same thing. So you're going to, wait a minute. So you're going to see much of the same thing. At this point of the presentation, I usually turn this part over to the city attorney.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, and welcome new council members. I'll go over the quasi-judicial disclosures. Those of you that have been here for a while have seen this a lot, but we do have a couple new members. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear that this is a quasi-judicial hearing. And what that means for you is that if you've had any communications at all outside of this public meeting, other than with staff, whether that be from members of the public or the applicant or anybody else, then you must disclose who you had the communication with, the general substance of the communication, and any matters discussed. For your disclosures, you also should include if you've received any materials outside of the materials that are included in the packet, as well as if you personally observed the site in order to make any determinations as to the condition of the site. So if anybody has any quasi-judicial disclosures, you should make them at this time.
Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a conversation with the president of Crystal Lakes, Mr. Rodriguez, and I looked at the site. I was driving by on a daily basis, and I also looked it up on the property appraisers. That's the only contact of that.
Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mayor. I also drove by the site as well.
Deputy Mayor Bentley?
Yeah, I did a drive-by.
Anyone else here? So I am in that subdivision quite frequently. I have spoken with many. I have friends that are residents in there. I speak with them. So yes, I've had quite a bit of conversation regarding this issue. Okay.
All right, going back to the slideshow, just for everyone's edification, as a planning director and as a city, it's not that we are, offering a certain position on a project. Our job is to take a look at what the codes are, what the comprehensive plan goals, objectives, policies are, And that's what this presentation is about, is to kind of lead you through, what they have provided. And like I said, they actually have a separate presentation, meaning the developer. The applicant for this project is a company called Core 4 Capital. So I'm not going to read through every bullet item on this background slide, but I am going to point out the aerial with the yellow sort of polygon line that's labeled as site. That's this particular project, and for those of you familiar with Minton Road, this is on the west side of Minton Road, right before you get to the I-95 overpass. So it's south of the city's West Melbourne Community Park. That particular property in yellow is 18.48 acres and is vacant. When you drive by it, you see, pine trees mostly. There's a few others, but mostly pine trees. And Core 4 Capital will tell you about the 120 single-family attached townhouse lot subdivision they want to create. And what, is really pertinent for these two agenda items is that the existing future land use is commercial, but in order to have a subdivision there, they have to change it from commercial to the medium-density residential. And the same thing with the zoning, that under the C1 zoning, they wouldn't be able to have that residential subdivision. It would have to be changed to R2. And then the last note at the bottom of the slide is that we do the advertisement and we do the mail-out notices to surrounding property owners. And I believe, some of the audience members have gotten the letter. And I think Crystal Lakes West, has also advertised to its residents because, as you see on this slide, Crystal Lakes West lies to the west of this particular property. Here's another view from the property appraiser. This is what we call an aerial view, and so it's the property outlined in red. You can see Crystal Lakes West to the west of it. You can see the label for Max Rhodes Park off of Flanagan Avenue. That's the county's big park. You can see a label for Calvary Chapel. I know it's not as clear. You might see another label for school. Again, this is just so that everybody kind of understands where this property is located. So the first part of this is about the future land use designation. Again, the slide shows on the left-hand side, the property outlined in the yellow polygon, and that the designation right now is commercial. So on the right side of the screen, you see that change of color if it was to be voted in by City Council tonight to medium-density residential. At the bottom of the slide, I wanted to let you all know that the Planning and Zoning Board, who acts as your local planning advisory board, they conducted their public hearing on October 21st, and they made a recommendation to recommend to you all for approval of these changes. The comprehensive plan and the Florida statutes require us to look at certain items, and so that's what some of these next several slides are going to be. We have to look at the goals, objectives, policies. We talked about that, the maximum infrastructure and service impacts for the different facilities. Any future land use analysis depends on the compatibility of the use with the surrounding area. So that's what this table emphasizes, is that, by and large, you've got either residential or sort of a lower use institutional in proximity. Under maximum impacts, so remember, again, this is something the Florida statute requires all local governments to do. It's not just City of West Melbourne. It's, all 67 counties, all 400 plus local governments. And if this property stayed as its designation of commercial, the 18.48 acres could be at maximum build-out of commercial 402,000 square feet. That's pretty large, so in comparison, Hammock Landing is about 775,000 square feet, so it's about half of that, not quite, but almost. There's also a possibility under the Live Local Act, a Florida statute, that you could, instead of just having commercial, you could have 333 affordable housing apartments. So that's another potential if it stays the way it is. And then you see the line that I have labeled as potential system impacts. This is, again, everything that the statute kind of says that we need to look at. We coordinate with the school board, water and sewer, public safety. The traffic, the impact analysis is not required on existing roads by the state. You just analyze new impacts. So what does that mean? It means we take what the maximum build-out might be under commercial, how many daily trips that might be, which is roughly 2,600 trips if it had 402,000 square feet, versus the maximum residential under the MD residential would be 185 units, and that's only 105 trips per day. So again, these are just the numbers, it's just information. Getting back to the live local analysis, there's 3 other items that I want to highlight. Again, I'm not going to read through the slide. Everybody, can read through that. But the density that we talked about, the 333, that's based not on 10 dwelling units an acre, which is what the MD residential would allow, but on the urban density residential, which allows a higher density. The height, what the statute says is that you can allow the maximum height in a 1 mile area or 3 stories, whichever is greater. For West Melbourne, that would be 50 feet. And the use, because we have certain codes and certain provisions by the Florida statutes, it's not just going to be, if it was going to be affordable housing, they would have to have a little bit of mixture of commercial. So 35% of that area would have to be commercial. The other 65% could be the live local, and that's how we came to that, blue line that has the 18.48 times 18, 333, just so that you all can see the math. Moving on to the comprehensive plan, this is where we take those goals, objectives, and policies. We look at them, we make comments about, is this proposal consistent with that? And the answer is yes, and all this is in the staff reports. So it's not as though, this is brand new material. It's anything that the public could already read in the staff reports that are printed online. Another notion that we talk about is the town center overlay. That this particular property in both the future land use map and the zoning maps is in the town center area where the city has, strived for having a town center like a mixed use type of feel of commercial and residential. And, the city has had different studies done by other organizations. We've identified this site as a town center. So even though the city doesn't own this site and it's owned by private individuals, we've identified this as potentially able to do that type of a mix of use because of the size. There hasn't been interest. This particular development, they have the 120 townhouse lots, so you'll see that in the preliminary plat. And then they have a 4.2 acre commercial tract. So we feel that's a little bit closer to something that's sort of a mixture of the commercial and the residential. And then they provide a few other facilities. Property rights analysis, this is something that the state of Florida requires all local governments to make sure that they have, not just that they've read about it in the Florida statute, but they actually have a whole chapter in our comprehensive plan that talks about property rights. So what does this mean? The words that are on that slide basically mean, if a property owner has a property that's, whether it's in our city, in Atlantic, the county, wherever, whatever the zoning is that they have on that property, they can build on that property unless it's owned, by some sort of agency that is not going to build on it. They don't have a right necessarily to a rezoning, but they do have a right to build. So that's what that property rights analysis is. Okay, again, switching gears, this should be labeled 10A2. The rezoning request, and a lot of people understand rezoning a lot easier, but this is where, again, on the left-hand side, you see the existing zoning of the C1 for this property, and you see that yellow polygon, and then on the right side, you can see if this property were to be rezoned, they would need to have the R2 in order to have the subdivision. It's a similar analysis with surrounding uses. We look at the intent statement of that particular zoning district, and we do feel that it meets the intent statement. We actually look at some of the uses. We look at some of the dimensional criteria, and this property exceeds that, of course. And then we get to the slide where the Planning and Zoning Board made these recommendations. For agenda item 10A.1, SSA stands for Small Scale Amendment. They made the recommendation to City Council to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-20. And then for agenda item 10A.2, the rezoning, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 2024-21. And if I could have the city attorney read the title, and if you all would like me to continue with the preliminary plat presentation, I can do that too. But I'll
Yes,
leave that up to
please.
you all.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance number 2024-20, an ordinance of the City of West Melbourne, Brevard County, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on parcels of land totaling 18.48 acres located at the southwest corner of Flanagan Road and Minton Road, and as more fully described herein, from City of West Melbourne commercial to City of West Melbourne medium-density residential, providing an effective date.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Is there a buffer between both of those communities? I mean, is that anywhere, written anywhere, that they need to provide a buffer?
Between this new community and Crystal Lakes
Yes.
West. There's nothing in the code that requires that, but if you all want, I can do the preliminary plat, review the presentation, and then you can certainly have the applicant, the developer, come up and they can let you know what their proposed buffer is going to be. But the answer is yes, there will be landscape buffering between the two communities, but I'd rather the developer tell you those
Okay.
details.
Thank you.
Would you all like to hear the preliminary plat?
I would like to hear the preliminary plat.
Okay, preliminary plat is another way of saying this is the first part of a subdivision process. Again, much of this is the same sort of material. Preliminary plat is a two-part process. So again, it did go through the City Planning and Zoning Board on October 21st. It's in front of you all now. If approved, then the preliminary plat would expire in June of 2026. It has an 18-month approval period. I thought that the flow chart might help to, explain that we're at the very vivid blue box where City Council determines if the preliminary plat is to be approved. So we've gone through many of the other steps, and this takes months to go through many of the other steps before it's ready to be in front of City Council. Going back to the town center history and this specific property, I brought up an image that showed in one of those studies, remember I said we had two studies done, in one of those studies, it showed sort of this outline of what could be. But again, there wasn't enough interest, from, I went all across the U.S. in terms of the business journals and other mailouts that we did. There seems to have been only consistent interest from residential developers, apartment builders, and that seems to be the only interest that this property has had. I've been with the city since 2007. This property was vacant back then, so it's been vacant for a long time. With the town center overlay and with this subdivision, there's certain criteria that they're going to have to meet, and so we just put up on the screen the architecture criteria. And then there's an image that the developer had shared with us of what those townhouse units may look like if you're standing in their street looking at it. And what I wanted to point out is that when we talk about a townhouse lot, what we're talking about is they don't only own that part of the building, sort of a condominium, you own sort of the space between the walls. But with a townhouse lot, you actually own a little bit of the front yard, so it'd be their driveway in the front, maybe the front door kind of area, and then a little bit of backyard. That's what a townhouse lot means. This has been another important discussion point, and the first thing to point out is that this particular Minton Grove is what they're calling it. This subdivision would not be gated. So even though the internal road that I'm going to try with the cursor to point out, it kind of bisects, it splits through the property, and it has the green in it. That's their internal private road, but no gates. And what the developer is proposing is that they would have a one-way entrance access to Burdock, And again, for the record, I'm going to let everyone know, Burdock Avenue is not a City of West Melbourne road. It's not a county road. It's a private road. And then the secondary access would be from Minton, and you all know Minton is a county road. And then they would have their primary access, they've told us, would be off of Flanagan Avenue.
Christie, is the one-way in or out?
So the one-way entrance access is coming if you came off of Minton either direction. On Burdock, you would just go in. Yes. And we'll talk about this in just a minute. Some folks have asked me, how big are the lots? They might be as small as 24 feet by 125, but that makes sense. That's sort of the footprint of the entire lot, and then you've got, building walls within that to provide a front yard and a backyard. In terms of access, what the city requires for the 120 lots is just one access, and they exceed that. So, that's one of the things that we have to analyze when we're looking at the application. These are words to describe a little bit more about the access. And to the question that I just had, the one-way access only is the entrance from Burdock Avenue, private road, no exit from the subdivision onto Burdock Avenue. So the developer will talk more about the easement agreement, and I believe the Crystal Lakes Homeowners Association president will probably talk about that too, but there is a whole separate document that refers to that. So this staff report is really not about that. It's about, does the subdivision meet the city codes? And that's why I have this screen to let everybody know if you have specific questions about Burdock, let's have the developer and the Crystal Lakes West Homeowners Association talk about those. There is a curb cut. If you look at the right side of that screen in the photograph with the pines and the upright reflectors, there is an existing curb apron for access onto Burdock Avenue from the property. So that exists today. Other features to note from the subdivision plat is that the preservation area that's located on the south side. So remember this, in order to fit this layout onto this slide, we had to turn it on its side. So north is really sort of pointing to the right. But the preservation area is a wetland area, and that's not going to be developed on. That's on the south side of Burdock. And then you're going to have stormwater, recreation, landscape buffer, and then you'll have actually a landscape buffer. So to answer the question about, is there going to be some sort of buffer between Crystal Lakes West residents who are along the rear here, there will be a little bit of green area filled in with trees and other vegetation, and then the backyards of each of these townhouse lots, and each of those townhouse lots are also going to have their own vegetation. And the 4.2 commercial area is along the front here. I don't know if this view helps. I just, chose another view that might show you on the left side the vacant nature of this property, and you can see sort of the shadows of the trees. And this is a slide that the developer will talk about in their presentation. One of their primary stormwater tracks is E, and this slide is mostly to let you know that anytime, on the drawings that you've seen, you see these colored lines that are red, those are stormwater, the green lines are the sewer, blue, it's hard to see, it's the water lines. This is a lot of the underground infrastructure. And that's what, the city is concerned about, but that's not what, we have 100% drawings on. So meaning it may go between now and the preliminary plat, if it's approved, that some of those underground lines, because they haven't been, fully sized, meaning are they going to be a certain diameter, or they're going to double in diameter as a location, that still has to be fleshed out. Same thing with stormwater. So that's why I have sort of that footnote at the bottom of the slide that, the pond size, location, depth, et cetera, all those details that truly go into making a subdivision, that still remains to be determined. But that's okay, because we know, that retention pond is going to be roughly there. It may be a little bit wider, might be a little bit deeper, but it will be roughly in that area, and they'll be able to proceed with those drawings to show how that's going to function. We have to look at the preliminary plat based on the different documents that they submit, and the third bullet is to let you know that, what could happen after the preliminary plat, and you've seen this in subdivisions, is that a builder could decide to put in all the infrastructure. They have preliminary plat approval. They don't start going what we say vertical with buildings, with houses and buildings, and they just put in all that underground infrastructure. Or they could post a very large performance bond saying that they're going to do that. So that's sort of the next step. But the most important thing is really the last bullet that says those individual lots, so we have 120 individual lots that are proposed. They cannot be sold until the final plat, which is the next step to come back to council and the Planning and Zoning Board, until that happens. So we're not there yet. We do our analysis for concurrency. We talked about that previously. And this is another view of that preliminary engineering infrastructure plan. Just for the record, too, there are outside agencies that will be looking at those detailed construction drawings prior to the final plat. And they all play a role in sort of the layout of the subdivision, but it's not going to be, a lot of changes to the lots. It'll be more changes to the infrastructure. So what I did is, instead of putting the planning and zoning recommendation on just one slide and having the numbers be really tiny, I have it on 2 slides. What we would like, if council so desires, because the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval of this resolution, would be if council would consider approving resolution number 2024-23. And it has 13 conditions, so 6 are on this page. And again, I'm not going to read through it. And then 7 through 13 are on this page of the presentation. And I'll try to answer any technical questions you have about our review, but it may be good to bring the developer and the citizens up for their questions and comments.
Public hearing, yes. Developers issue now? Developer's turn? Yes. Listen for the, thank you, Kelly.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kelly Delmonico. I'm a planning consultant for the applicant tonight. I am joined tonight with our group over here that consists of the developer, the landscape architect, the civil engineer, and the transportation engineer. So if there's anything I am unable to answer, we can bring any of them up for some conversation. What I have being handed out right now is, you'll see me refer to this kind of colorized site plan that's in front of you on the 11 by 17, as well as behind it, that is an excerpt out of our construction plans that I'll refer to a little later on in the conversation, because it has very small text on it and you won't be able to see it on the screen.
Are these finalized?
The construction drawings?
Yes.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Nope, they're going through review at the city right now, and that will be the next step after preliminary plat.
That's what I thought, but just wanted to check.
Sure.
Go down.
Got it, we're good. So as Christy said, we're here today with a few requests. The first is to change the future land use designation on the area outlined in red there from commercial to medium density residential, as well as the zoning from C1 to R2 in the town center overlay. And this is to allow a 120-unit townhome development and approval of a preliminary plat. Now, as was mentioned before, sometimes we're shifting the plans you're seeing in front of you from north to the right to north up, just depending on the screen so we can see it a little bit better. But in this case, north is to the right. So we're showing 120 single-family lots, which would be attached townhomes. It would be split into 16 two-story townhome buildings, not apartments, that would be platted and sold to individual property owners. It does contain a community pool, as you can see in the middle on the top side there, which is the west side. Zooming in just a little bit on the north end, what you can see here is we've set aside 4.2 acres at the corner of Minton and Flanagan for future commercial use. And then on the south side of the site, south of Burdock Avenue, the wetland area that exists there, we would put that into a conservation easement for preservation moving into the future, so no one can develop on that. We had a question earlier about landscape buffers. And what you can see on the screen is you see the slight purple area along Minton Road there. The purple area is indicating some of our landscape buffers. So right there, it would be 20 to 40 feet buffer between the townhome lots and the private property line, the right-of-way line on Minton, as well as this right here is showing the north end of the site that is adjacent to several homes in Crystal Lakes West. The purple area there is 20 plus feet between the townhome property line and the common property line that would be used for existing and additional vegetative buffers. What I also want to go back to is you see the yellow dashed line along here as well. Fences were an important part of the conversation, especially when we had met with the neighbors. So what we did agree to for the west property line, which you're seeing on this site, is some of the neighbors wanted a fence put up and some did not. So what we agreed to do was for the neighbors that wanted a fence put up on the common property line, is that we would put up a 6-foot tall vinyl fence, a privacy fence for those that wanted it. We didn't want to force it on some people because some people already had fences, so we were going to leave that a little bit open-ended.
I got a question on that.
Yes, sir.
Who's going to be maintaining that fence?
That would be
The HOA?
that would be the HOA for Minton
Your
Grove.
HOA?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Could we go back one slide, Christy? Yeah, just with the, oh, sorry, go back. Yep, thank you. And then in terms of fences for this portion, one of the conditions of approval listed for the preliminary plat is that we install a decorative fence along Minton Road, which is that yellow area. And we are in agreement with that, except what we want to make sure is that the fence would only be along the residential portion and not in front of the commercial portion. We don't want to put up a fence in front of the commercial uses. With the stipulation here that we're happy to put up that fence, but tree preservation for us right here is really important. So we're hoping that if there's ever a conflict between a tree that's existing we're trying to preserve and this decorative fence, that the tree wins and we just stop the fence and start the fence again. So that would be one of the things we'd ask for, is that the fence along Minton, it's only in front of the residential portion, and that if a tree is in conflict, the tree can win and not the fence.
Christy, is that in the proposal?
That's something that we've done successfully with other developments, so that's not an issue at all in terms of, a solid sort of barricade that goes around a tree that's going to be saved. What's going to happen is with the construction drawings, they're going to put in a lot of detail about what trees are going to be saved, what aren't. And then even before the trees are removed, there's usually an on-site meeting to make sure that everything that was shown on paper is still there. And usually there's a lot of follow-up when the actual fence is going to be erected. So we've had that in other cases.
Was there any discussion on the type of fence? Is it wrought iron or is it a solid fence?
It's supposed to be wrought iron along Minton Road.
Okay.
Except not actually, because it would rust apart. Maybe another material, a wrought iron looking fence?
Yes, a picket looking.
Aluminum,
fence.
whatever.
Something
I mean,
black,
yes,
right? Picket, yes.
Something aesthetically pleasing
something you
that
see through that
Yeah.
provides, yeah, okay.
And then we don't want to disturb a lot of the tree roots with the fence. So sometimes if it's determined that it's a sensitive tree, we'll work with the city to work around that to save that tree. So on this screen, what I'm first going to talk about is the sidewalks. So there will be full sidewalks around the entire development. You'll see the solid red line that runs along Burdock and connects to Minton Road. Those are existing sidewalks that are in place now. And then the red dashed lines along Flanagan and internal to the site, those sidewalks would be installed by the developer. And it would create a pedestrian network that connects everything through there. This slide also shows the 3 vehicular connections, which are the yellow circles. The first one is on Flanagan to the north. The second one is on Minton. And the third is the Burdock, which again would be entrance only. It would be northbound entrance only, which I'll discuss later in the presentation. This kind of brings up that second piece of paper that I gave to you. Go to the next sheet here. What we wanted to discuss on this is that you will notice the elevations between the Crystal Lakes West site and Minton Grove. Their site is actually higher than our site is going to be. So you won't see a development where you have the old development and then the new development come in with a big change in elevation. In this case, our site is actually fairly flat. So the elevations that you're looking at in front of you, there's like a thin blue line on there. And then the Crystal Lakes West site, you'll see the elevation markings on there that are around 25, 26. And you'll look at our elevation markers from the rear of the lots, and those are actually lower than the Crystal Lakes West. So we will not be flowing onto their site, and we'll be retaining all of our stormwater. We're required to retain all of our stormwater on site, and we will do that, and we will be in accordance with the St. Johns River Water Management District. Our discharge point was planned many years ago. So the subject property we're talking about today, Minton Grove, as well as Crystal Lakes West, that entire triangle, that was all under a unified property owner at one point. And the entire site was designed to have its discharge point to the north to the Flanagan Canal. So we will also be discharging to where it was intended for us to discharge. So we'll retain our own stormwater on site. Discharge will be to the Flanagan Canal. Again, that grade along the property line remains stable, and our backyards are slightly lower than Crystal Lakes West. There is some flow from Crystal Lakes West that we will be retaining on our site. And we do have our engineer here to answer questions related to that as well. Here's the architecture we're proposing. This is an example of a 6-unit building. We also do have 8-unit buildings as well that will look similar to this. In terms of floor plans, this is where we're at today. It's a draft. It could change a little bit here and there. But what you're seeing is the left is an end unit, and the right is an interior unit, first and second floors. We're ranging from about 1,650 to 1,880 square feet under air, and that doesn't take into account garages, patios, and entrances. We have had a significant amount of community engagement throughout this project. We've been communicating with the Crystal Lakes neighborhood since March of this year. March 28th, we had a meeting with the Crystal Lakes HOA board to introduce the project and provide a concept plan. We then, in June, had a meeting with the Crystal Lakes residents. We invited the entire neighborhood. The HOA was kind enough to help us send the invites out to everybody. That plan at that time was a little bit different than what you're seeing today. The difference was there was 2 more units at that time and no pool. And we were also showing full ingress, egress to Burdock Avenue from the Minton Grove, our development. They had about 28 people in attendance, plus 1 that attended virtually, so it was very well attended. And they seemed to have no objection to the rezoning and future land use requests for the platted townhomes. Collectively, they expressed they would prefer to be developed as townhomes rather than all commercial or affordable housing. There were 3 main concerns that were brought up during that initial meeting. The first was the buffering along the common property line. So they did appreciate the 20-plus foot landscape buffer that we have along that property line on the west side. And we agreed to provide the 6-foot fencing where people would like it along that property line as well. The second concern was that a coffee shop or cafe built in the proposed commercial track would bring unwanted competition to the promised cafe in the park. And then the third concern, which was their overwhelming concern, is the intersection of Burdock and that private street. So their concern is that they have a lot of traffic that backs up waiting to get out onto Minton Road from Burdock. So they have over 200 single-family homes in their neighborhood with of ingress and egress, and that's Minton. So they have a backup of traffic that happens as you go down Burdock Avenue. So Burdock Avenue towards Minton Road is where they back up. They did not want Minton Grove to connect to Burdock, and we acknowledge and understand that concern. So we agreed to look into not providing access on Burdock. We continued to reach out to the Crystal Lakes HOA board after we had met with city staff several times. So we tried to look into a redesign on this site, but ultimately we quickly determined that there were negative consequences to completely closing our access to Burdock. It has to do with emergency vehicle, garbage truck, and resident access from the south. Putting in a cul-de-sac is not ideal. It's a long dead end. It creates more impervious surface. It reduces the number of trees that we're able to preserve and increases our impervious area. So we explained to the HOA that we understood the concerns and that we were willing to do ingress only. So vehicles entering off of Minton to Burdock, entering into the neighborhood. No vehicles leaving. It would be a one-way at that point, and vehicles could not leave and further back up the issue on Burdock Avenue. We did communicate with the HOA board further into October, and their stance still remains that they do not want Minton Grove to connect in any way to Burdock. So back in 2005, Burdock Avenue has always been a private street, and this entire triangle, which is Crystal Lakes West, plus the Minton Grove property, which is a subject property, this was all under one ownership group. So what they did before they sold the property to the developer of Crystal Lakes West is they entered into an easement agreement that very clearly set forth what was going to happen. And as part of that private agreement, it allowed the subject property to access Burdock fully, full ingress, egress, and that access was supposed to be constructed by the developer of what became to be Crystal Lakes. So as you can see here, you see Burdock Avenue is a private road. Minton Grove property is the subject property we're dealing with today, and you can see where there's the entrance that was constructed. So this was constructed by the same person that developed Crystal Lakes West in anticipation of and in furtherance of this easement agreement that was agreed to.
Since you brought up the easement, I have a question on that.
Yes.
In the easement that I read, it said that if you're going to connect to it, you're going to assume 50% of the cost of the road. Is that going to hold true? Is that your plan?
Yes, sir. So I'll get to that too. So as part of the deal, the developer for Crystal Lakes West constructed where the access would be for the future development to the north. So it's already constructed, it's ready to go. We don't need full access, but the access is there. In return, once the Minton Grove property develops, they're then responsible for 50% of the maintenance of this area in yellow. So it's a give and a take, and it's always been set up this way for this Minton Grove property to access Burdock Avenue in this way. The developer is willing to give up egress, and just keep it entrance only so they don't further exacerbate the issues that the neighbors are having exiting the neighborhood. But yes, upon development of Minton Grove, they would become responsible for 50% of the maintenance cost of the yellow area. And that's about 520 feet, that yellow area there. And maintenance, it includes the private right-of-way, medians, irrigation, lighting, landscaping, and other amenities. It just doesn't include, for example, the sign for the Crystal Lakes West neighborhood. That will be fully their financial responsibility. So again, this is really a private property matter on private right-of-way with no right-of-way being required by the city. So we really do understand and empathize with the residents, and we are willing to make a concession and have it just be entrance only. Since we met with Planning and Zoning Board last, we were able to get back our traffic study, and we really wanted them to focus as well during that study on what the impacts would be to Burdock with this one-way entrance only access point. So Here's what we got back from the study. The proposed development is expected to generate 58 a.m. and 100 p.m. peak hour entering trips. Since the project driveway on Burdock Avenue is entrance only, it will experience 4 entering trips during the a.m. peak hour and 7 entering trips during the p.m. peak hour. That means that on average, 1 car will enter the site from Burdock every 8.57 minutes during the p.m. peak hour. So we really don't anticipate there to be any negative impact on Burdock Avenue with the number of vehicles entering from the south and heading north. Again, we just had that one request on condition 13A, that it be clarified that the fencing along Minton Road is only in the location for where we have the residential use and not the commercial use. And we agree with all the rest of the conditions. We believe that all of the plans, including the comprehensive plan map amendment, the rezoning, and the preliminary plat, are all consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, as well as the town center overlay. And we are happy to answer any questions, and I would like to reserve some time at the end of public comment if needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is public hearing. I do have speaker cards. Don't have a lot of them, but I do have them, and I do have some lights on here. I'm not ignoring you. We just want to let the public speak first. The first person to speak would be Manny Rodriguez.
Good night.
Good evening.
Welcome, new members. Good evening. Some familiar faces here. Not an easy task for me today. It's try to be personal on this, try to be a represent for my community, for the HOA. We hear all the technical part. We all gonna save the trees. That's beautiful. It sounds really good. Nothing against their project or them in particular. I think they have a great project, a great presentation. They bring some assets to this meeting to try to make their point, and of course to the planning and zoning meeting. We don't have a really position to say we don't want this commercial or we don't want this residential. I guess that's a decision to you. You are not a technical person, you are a people's person. You represent us there. What we think is this project is changing an individual zoning to make it residential. That have significant impacts in some of us as members of our community. For example, one of the comments that I just hear was that we all expect aim-point cars every, I don't know how many hours. Evidently, they've never been in Eber Road in the rush hour. So this is what we're talking here. I mean, Chrissy, if you can point out a little bit the other one, or you can see in your project, the plot that you have there, they're not including the bottom part, what they call the wetland. And some of you, member of the council, know me before because I've been working for a year plus on this with other agencies. That wetland is a retaining water. That they cannot construct there. It's not because they're willing to give that away. It's not that. They cannot do it. There is a flooding issue, important, that we have right now a process going with St. John's River Water Management, with Brevard County. We went to the engineers that built Crystal Lake West. We are working with FDOT. Some of you help us to get in touch with FDOT. We have videos proof, we have drone shoots, we have pictures, we have everything that you want. I mean, there is concerns. There is gonna be a flooding issue here. The numbers, yeah, we can make the numbers. The numbers looks really good, beautiful. We see the reality that's happening right now in Volusia County. Just today, they announced that probably they're proposing a ban for every construction for the moment, because everybody's losing their houses there for the flooding issues. In the past 2 years, we have flooding issues in Crystal Lake West. Some of you are aware because they help us to get in touch with different agencies to try to solve it. I understand that it's not a West Melbourne issue, But I do understand that West Melbourne can change this and make it worse or make it better. And I don't know what is the right answer. You probably know. They talk about the entrance on Burdock Avenue. Well, it's a real issue. Yes, it's a private entrance. Yeah, but they don't talk about the rest. Burdock Avenue is just an extension of Eber Road. Eber Road back up all the way almost to Dairy Road when there's the rush hour. So you imagine adding another 200 plus houses, take it or leave it 2 person per townhouse, 2 cars. That's what they're planning to accommodate. It's going to be back up. In 2005, when the easement was done, if you read the perpetual easement, it says the spirit of this agreement was for a commercial property. So, yeah, the numbers say there's going to be less traffic because there's going to be residential. I don't know how that works, but I know about rush hour. I know when I go out to the school, I see people running all the way behind the park, the city, and go behind to go to the schools. The school district have to put different hours for the access to the school because they're back up. There is issues with the traffic. It's nothing new. So I don't know if the answer is change the zoning or not. Honestly, I don't know. You probably know better than me. They probably know better than me. They have the documents to support it. Chrissy, I like something that she mentioned.
Mr. Rodriguez, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. They're going to involve other agencies to change the infrastructure to accommodate this. Well, guess what? The infrastructure right now is not working. So imagine on top of that, this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have one question for you, Mr. Rodriguez, right here. The designer mentioned that you guys were in favor of residential over commercial. The conversation I had with you, your community,
so
you have a mixed group as far as what they want, but you said the majority are not in favor of.
Correct. They're not in favor right? Because there's no solution to our problems. There's basically flooding and the traffic issue. So we think the commercial.
We can keep it short. You're in more in favor of the commercial than the residential.
And we've been trained by the Local Living Act that is coming for us and blah blah blah. Yeah, and people some mentioned that they're going to educate us about that. That property's been there for more than 20 years. I've been living there for 15. It's not going to happen. And if it happens, we will oppose to that.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. The next speaker is Kevin Frank.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Frank. I live in Crystal Lakes West, and if I had their resources, I could come up with all the statistics and all the studies that would dispute everything they put on that board, because that's what we do. We paint a picture to present to you that's nice and pretty and beautiful, and then we go and we pay the people to get the studies that back it up. Well, backup, you can get studies that say anything you want. Figures lie, liars figure. That's the way it goes. I will tell you this. As far as the Live Local Act is concerned, I don't care. And the reason is because this community will stand up to that anytime it comes our way, if it ever comes our way. We bought our homes back in 2010, 2009, 2011, knowing that as a commercially zoned property. That's what we knew, that's what we expected. We knew about the easement. We didn't have the document at the time, but we knew about the easement. The apron is right there, it's visible. You could see that there's an easement there. You could see that that's preparing for the future development. We expected that. We did not expect 122 homes, or 120 homes, I'm sorry, being built there that is gonna cause flooding no matter what you tell me. Why do we know this? Right now, today, whenever there's a heavy rain, the water flows from that property that is supposedly gonna be lower than ours into our backyards and into our streets from that land. We witnessed this, we videoed this. We also have a problem with the fact that it all empties into Flanagan Canal, where our entire community empties into. Why? Flanagan Canal is broken. It's your responsibility to fix that, and I'm working with your public works to get that fixed. When I say broken, what's going on? It's flowing backwards into our lakes in our community instead of the other way around. Our lakes are supposed to flow into Flanagan. Anytime there's a heavy rain, the reverse happens. It flows back into our lakes and floods our lakes. That's a problem. So we're working with the public works now to get that corrected. I can only tell you this. We as a community knew it was going to be commercial. We expected it to be commercial. We somewhat supported this at first, but in further discussion and looking at it, we don't support it any longer. We feel that a commercial is the way we would like to see it go. As far as the traffic issues are concerned, we're not talking about Burdock Avenue, that's minor. We're talking about Minton Road. If any of you really live here and drive that road on a daily basis between the early morning hours or the late afternoon hours, 18 minutes for me to drive 1.2 miles to get my kids to school. 1.2 miles. That's today. That's before the 4-story building apartment complex and the one across the street from that is even opened and developed. Brevard County is talking about expanding Minton Road, but when? Where? Where's the money? We don't see this in the near future. How can we even consider adding more housing when we already have been inundated with housing in this area? How can we even consider putting that many more cars onto our roads when we cannot handle it today? It would be negligent of this board to even consider approving this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Frank. Next speaker is Laura Burns. State your name and address, please, for the record.
Laura Burns. I live on 3332 Dion Street.
Thank you.
So I am a resident of Crystal Lakes West, and I have been involved in this whole process. I was at the initial meeting, and I've been trying to follow it all the way through, planning and zoning as well. Couple of notes I have that I don't think we've discussed yet at all is the developers are required a certain amount of capacity, and they're down by 35%. So, and they don't have to be, as far as the codes go. It would be financially beneficial for our community to have Burdock entrance, and then they pay for the maintenance, because that's a big financial savings for us. Manny, I just want to address what he said. Wetlands can be mitigated, which it can't be built on now. Wetlands can be mitigated. So if you have the wetlands, they could build on it eventually. They just have to mitigate it somewhere else, and I can explain that to you later. A lot of these issues that we've had, and we've had for a long time, obviously, we need to go to the county commissioner's office, because Minton is a county road, which I didn't know about until a few weeks ago. So county commissioners, the water management companies, they've got to do something about the flooding, because those are our two main issues with this. And they're nothing that you guys can have any control over. St. John's water management issue, FLDOT, yeah, we can't do anything with them. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last speaker is Eva Nagamahali.
Good evening and welcome to everybody that now is in West Melbourne, helping everybody, not just West Melbourne.
Can you state your name and address, please?
Pardon?
Please state your name and address.
My name is Eva Nagamahali, and my address is 3413 Willowwood Drive, Melbourne, Florida.
Thank you.
And I live across the street on Minton on the east side. It's called Woodland Oaks. It's called Woodland Oaks, and we're all on either 1 acre. My home is on 1.5 acres, and I have 300 feet on Minton. So My concern is mostly not just West Melbourne, but I'm talking about all of us that live in the county. And by rezoning this to R2 and then keeping a portion commercial, you are still not resolving what was made a big issue about SB 102 and the fact that you can have low-income housing and they can build and they don't have to follow the rules. But this is going to give you an extreme amount of small units, 120 homes on only on 18 acres, and still reserving 5 acres on one side for commercial. So that could still be SB 102. So you're not really getting anything out of this by letting them do this small, very contained amount of homes in that small area. Again, the traffic congestion is a major, major problem. And it's not just West Melbourne, it's county, it's city. We're all right at the corner, everything there. By you doing this and them being able to do it, you're going to have frustrated people, more accidents. And don't forget, Eber is just one lane going one way or another. Nothing has been done to increase it. Minton is just horrible to drive on. The apartment buildings are all up. They're building more of them. They're everywhere. It's overly congested. And we were rated in today's paper by the U.S. News World Report as the 20th city for retirement homes, or people who want to come to our city. Well, we're going to be 220 if they have to come and fight the kind of congestion we're going to set up. If we don't stop it, put some impact fees, do whatever. Let them build 60 townhomes and keep the rest of it commercial. Do something, but to allow them to put 120 homes right at that overpass heading on Minton is detrimental and accident causing. It's not just Crystal Lakes that's getting it, it's all of us. So I appreciate you being up there, and please start out on the right foot.
Thank you, Ms. Nagle-Mahali. Thank you very much. All right. Does anyone else wish to speak on this topic before we close the public hearing and council starts to discuss this? Anyone else want to speak on Minton Grove property? All right, I'm going to close the public.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. You wanted to reserve your time after that.
Sure. I was just Kelly Delmonico, planning consultant. There was just a couple things I wanted to address and also let you know that we have all of our team here to answer questions about traffic and flooding and those types of items. The one thing I did want to address, though, was this is the first time I've ever heard people from the neighborhood saying they would prefer commercial over residential. It has always been, and I have it in writing, and every public hearing we've ever also been at, there was no opposition to the rezoning to residential. So that kind of caught me off guard. The commercial would create more traffic and more of an impact than 120 residential units. And if you have questions based on any of that analysis, I'm happy to bring up anyone from the team. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is closed. I have some lights lit up here. Mr. Frampus, you wanted to speak first? You've been waiting a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Christy, I have a few things, but let me ask you, can you touch on the traffic a little bit? Because we're not allowed, we have certain restrictions on traffic that we can consider, and just so everybody knows that that's not a big part of our decision. Can you touch on that a little?
I'll give a little bit of history. I mean, one of the speakers talked about traffic impact fees. There are traffic impact fees that developers have to pay, whether it's commercial, institutional, residential. There's a certain amount of money that gets paid, and that goes to Brevard County, but that's for what they call the South Mainland District area, and those funds can be used to make road improvements. It cannot be used, let's say there's potholes and other issues that need to be taken care of. It's not used for that. It's made really for additional turn lanes, additional travel lanes, we call it. But in terms of the state of Florida in 2011 decided that what we call transportation concurrency, which is sort of that test of, what is the volume of traffic, what is the congestion level on a road versus what a new development is going to bring. That's no longer allowed, really, you have to almost look at just the set of the number of what the new development is going to bring and what they call background traffic, because whether this property remains vacant, now or not, there's always going to be an increase. It may be a steady increase of traffic on Minton Road, but the existing traffic is what they call background traffic. So when we showed the slide, that said with commercial development at maximum build out, you could have more trips than with residential. That's assuming sort of maximum build out. It's unlikely that you would get 400,000 square feet of commercial, on the 18 acres. There just doesn't seem to be a driving need to have a lot more commercial until, this is again, nothing to do with the city, the developers look at their numbers and how many homes are in a particular radius in order to be able to invest. And what we're told is that a lot of the investment is happening on New Haven Avenue, Palm Bay Road, some of the other big arterials, but not on Minton yet for commercial. So does that answer your question about traffic?
Thank you. The preservation area to the south, you said the agreement is going to lock that in, right?
That's right. There's going to be a preservation document. So with wetlands, the St. Johns River Water Management District determines whether they are functional, and so that's a term that they use to decide if it's really, an adequate functioning wetland and needs to be retained as such. And there's something called recharge to the wetlands that sometimes when there's development around a functioning wetland that has, the flora, the fauna, and whatnot, if you have too much development around it, that wetland will become dry. So there is some logic that wetland, is being fed by some water source that's running off, because that's all part of the plan. That's all part of the way that it's supposed to work. For whatever reason, in 2005, with a plat, they didn't designate that as a conservation easement. In a lot of our subdivisions, wetlands are designated with conservation easements. So we want to make sure going forward that that's the case. But like I said, the zoning has nothing to do with that. That really has to do with function.
If it goes forward, it will be preserved.
It will.
It can't be changed.
It won't be changed. Once it has that conservation easement on it, no, sir.
Okay. I also, I believe that comprehensive planning and zoning are one of the most important things we do up here. And there are times where a project, we'll change the zoning and change the comprehensive plan when an awesome project comes along. I believe there's two reasons we should change the comprehensive plan and potentially the zoning, and that's if a better vision is presented to us or if there's a great benefit to the surrounding communities. I don't believe this is one of them, and I won't be in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wolf, you're next.
Yes, you had mentioned 7 or 8 cars going in and out at certain different times. And if there's only that many cars going in and out, then why do they even bother using that, and why can't they just go on Flanagan?
Yeah, I'd like the developer to go, because that's who said it. I didn't say that. We haven't looked at their traffic study yet, so I'm not going to comment.
Yeah. Because that just seems almost ridiculous to even use the road if that's all that's going to be using.
Yes, ma'am. And before we bring Connie up here to talk about the traffic, so the reason that we need to open up Burdock to access is because we don't want to create a dead-end cul-de-sac roadway. We need access for emergency vehicles and garbage trucks to come through that south side, which also means opening it up to whatever residents of Minton Grove want to utilize that. So the opening up of that access into the neighborhood is very important for the neighborhood, but it will be a low traffic generator, if I'm saying that correctly.
So we analyzed that driveway, it's an entrance only. We are assuming only residential trips will be using that. Our traffic study that we recently submitted takes into account the full development, as in the commercial portion as well. And we're assigning those trips to go through the driveway that's on Minton and through Flanagan. We assume, based on how the site is laid out, what a percentage, what people who live closest to there will go to enter through the closest driveway. That's for where their house is. So that's how we assigned our trips for the residential portion.
So a garbage truck or an ambulance or something couldn't fit in that Minton Road access?
Yes, ma'am, they could. Could we go to a slide that shows the layout? So perfect. Yeah, when we're talking about a dead end of a road, the design consideration here, if you're looking at the site plan in front of you, we needed to connect the roadway to Burdock to give garbage trucks need to be able to come in both sides to pick up the garbage on both sides of the road. We did not want to create a cul-de-sac at the end of the street and not connect to Burdock Avenue, because that would do a lot of things for us. It would create a dead end scenario. We wouldn't be able to have as many trees preserved in that area as we do now. We would have an increase of impervious area because it takes more pavement to create a cul-de-sac than it does the entrance on the south side, and it would cause the loss of units as well. This was the best functioning plan that we could get that connects Burdock, Minton, and Flanagan all together into one cohesive development.
But if a garbage truck is going to go in that side, up one side and down the other, then the garbage truck is going to come out that way?
The garbage truck would need to enter and go north to pick up the garbage on the east side of the road. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not going to be able to come out that way?
It will go both ways. It'll be able to go both ways because it's connected to Burdock.
But not exit on Burdock. Are they going to turn around before?
Yeah, where are they going to turn around on Burdock or what?
There's a little turnaround bump out right there. I wonder if we have anything closer.
Here.
There's a turnaround bump out there.
Here.
To allow for them to turn around right there. However, if we didn't have any type of access at all onto Burdock, we would be in a scenario where we would have a cul-de-sac. And a cul-de-sac is a much larger radius.
Okay.
And it takes up a lot more space with impervious area and the removal of trees.
Thank you.
And it creates a dead end. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. Mr. Bentley?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions. First, I'll get one that just seemed odd to me out of the way. You mentioned, I have a question for you, actually. You mentioned that the fencing between the two neighborhoods would be sporadic because some people want it and some people don't. That just seems to me that would look incredibly odd.
So if the neighborhood agrees that we should run that fence along that entire yellow length there from the edge of Flanagan to the pond, that would not be a problem. The issue was at the community meeting, someone was like, I already have a fence. I don't want another fence up against my fence. So we're open.
You wouldn't have zones that don't have any fence at all.
Only if they didn't want them.
All right.
But we're happy
I
to
understand,
do
but
fence
that
the
just
entire way. We were trying
sounds odd
to
to me.
do something that
That'll get worked out, I'm sure. It just seemed odd to me. So I do have a question. The gentleman said that water is currently draining from Minton Grove, I think that's called, to their neighborhood. How's that possible if your neighborhood's lower than theirs?
It's not. We'll bring up our engineer to talk about drainage and
Okay.
water, if that's acceptable.
Well, I mean, it's happening. If they've got video, it sounds like of it. So I'm just a little bit confused by that, but go ahead.
Good evening, Brandon Ulmer with Thomas Engineering. Sure. I'd have to look at the specific area, but there is a lake that that is or was connected to their larger lake. And so some of that area that's beyond where those houses are is lower. Remember, this site is undeveloped, so whatever's happening is happening today. It's shedding water wherever it's shedding water because there's no drainage system. So what we're going to do is create a drainage system that contains that water, discharges it to the proper discharge point. And one of the other points that was brought up, and I want to kind of clarify, wetlands are, I think they said that that was flooding. There's no real criteria for wetlands in a drainage design. And what I mean by that is probably flooding is not the best word. We store water in wetlands, and there's no minimum criteria to store water in wetlands. Whatever water's going to that wetland can continue to go to that wetland to continue to hydrate it. So flooding, I think, is probably not the correct term for that. Is more storing water. Also, if you look at a set of drainage calcs, there's criteria for when you can store water, let's say in a green area or on a road system. The internal roads on a neighborhood, it's a very, very low, the criteria for when you can store water on the road system. So all of the drainage systems, even ours, at some point is designed to have water on the roadways so that you can protect the buildings.
So I think you're agreeing that it's possible that water is currently draining onto their property from your, what I call your property,
Sure,
because it's not set up to contain it.
It's undeveloped, yeah.
And you guys are saying when this is all said and done, your property will be lower than theirs at all points. Therefore, there won't be, that's your contention? Okay, thank you. Christy, do you agree that traffic is worse in, let's say, let me get that right, with commercial versus residential?
You're going to have more trips. Yes, you're going to have more daily trips. And
with commercial?
With commercial, right. It's just the numbers. It's that each residential unit, folks are right, I believe it's the HOA president who talked about, maybe 2 cars per unit. And when you have, let's use a simple example, 1,000 square feet of retail or 4,000 square feet of retail, then the calculation becomes, sort of based on customers and how many people are going to be visiting that site. And it's obviously much more than a residential unit. So that's the difference. That's why you always have more commercial trips than residential.
Does that model hold true, though, during high traffic times? I think, like when people go somewhere and then when they come home at night after work, usually you have an hour period in the morning and maybe an hour and a half period in the afternoon where nobody moves anywhere. Yes. So does that trend hold true during those times?
It generally holds true, except for if the business, really has a much later PM time. So if it's a movie theater, for example, that won't hold true. But for regular retail, that is true.
And then I have another question for Christy, and I think that's it. I think the gentleman made a reference to he'll fight live local when and if that comes up, because that's certainly something that could happen here if this didn't get changed now and there's nothing we can do one way or another. I've not seen many cities in the state of Florida that have been successful fighting that. Does he know something that we don't know?
I'm not aware of anything.
I think he sort of suggested that they would fight that battle, but I haven't seen anybody win that battle yet.
Yeah, as you know, we're guided by our city attorney who attends a lot of those league and the bar association types of seminars, and he'd be the first to tell us if there is, some manner that we can fight it. Now, what we tried to do is make it so that if live local does happen on this property or any property, and it probably wouldn't happen with 4.2 acres, that's really too small. A developer wants to, we've been told, wants to have 200 units or more in order to make profit, et cetera. So with that being said, you know, what we did, it was back in, I think, June, that we changed the code so that you could, you know, the live local would still occur, but 35% of the land area needed to be developed with something commercial. So that was the city's way of sort of mitigating some of that impact. But there are no codes to say, you know, this is the way that the city will fight live local. We're not allowed to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. I have questions for the developer first, and then Christy, I'll get to my questions for you. Looking at I know this is a temporary, you know, proposal necessarily, and if it moves forward, other drawings would come forward and more research would be done and things like that. But looking at what we have now and kind of going back on what we've read in our staff report, there is some concern looking at how it kind of the road spines through your this neighborhood for the Groves. If there's concern, even if you're coming in off of Burdock all the way through, of potential cut through, of people trying to avoid traffic one way or the other, because of course, even though it's meant to be a pull-in, there are people that don't always follow the rules. So could I expect somebody to try to, you know, go out and sneak and make that a really bad traffic issue? Not even a traffic issue, but a following the directions of the road issue, which could lead to potential issues on Burdock? Yes. Is there any plan to put in speed humps or something on just your private section of that road to discourage people from doing that?
I mean, one of the things we talked about potentially is closing the median where the people couldn't cut through and get over to this right-in only.
Well, the median currently, I think based off a picture I saw in my meeting with staff, there are upright reflectors there. That's correct, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so are we ensuring that those upright reflectors are staying?
I don't actually think those are necessarily allowed, but we would be happy to formalize that into curbing. I don't know that we really want to talk about the upright reflectors that are there, but those aren't generally accepted traffic control devices. However, in that case, we would have signage for where the entrance is that says ingress only, and from the other side, it would be a do not enter. And in terms of, you know, making sure people follow rules, it's very, as the neighborhood's aware, people speed through neighborhoods, and there's only so much you can do about trying to stop people from speeding. But we will make every effort to make that known that that is an entrance only with striping, signage, and we would be willing to close off permanently that section of Burdock so people can't take a left-hand turn out of there.
Okay. The access points, I know we talked about emergency services a couple times, but is there, if there is any issue with these other secondary and even that main primary access looking at it on Flanagan, I know sometimes, you know, it's only happened a couple times, but it's worth bringing up because emergency service access is a concern. If something happens on that primary access, you know, that secondary access then becomes where you want your residents to leave from. If something happens on both of those, then Burdock becomes the only way out. I'm just trying to think ahead.
You know, more access is always good than less. As Crystal Lakes West knows, having one access point, if something happens there, they have no other option to get out. So in this case, having this third access point just gives another option. Let's say there's some weird hazmat event on Flanagan and on Mitten and everything is stopped out. Well, I'm sure police would help people figure how to get in and out of the one-way only access on Burdock.
I just know that we've changed, before I came here, the size of neighborhoods that have to require 2 exits. So I know you guys have them here for that purpose. I'm just looking at that one on Burdock.
Correct, and I would hope to, you know, Crystal Lakes West, and what my suggestion to them as well would be to look into options to get a second point of access onto Flanagan, because their right-of-way is actually right there, and they could have another second point of access with approvals through government agencies.
You talked about some of the tree preservation. Are we planning to preserve some of the larger trees that are on that lot? That is a very beautiful lot. It makes me sad when tons of trees come down in our city, but I also understand private property rights, and so there's a balance there. Are we planning to preserve those? How do we plan, like, what I don't want to see if this moves forward is a bunch of small trees that are planted to make up for these very large trees that have been there and have grown over time. I don't necessarily see them as comparable. I know it's not something that's necessarily required, but I would like to state that whether they're preserved or whether they're added, I think that's important if this project moves forward.
Hello, Leah Heinzelman. I'm with Kotler and Herring. So just so you know, we had to do a full tree mitigation plan, and we are preserving and relocating more than we are removing. So everything that you see, and I know this is just a graphic, but we also have a full landscape plan. Everything along the buffers and even interior are relocated oaks. So we analyzed all the oaks that, you know, are going to be taken out with the townhouses, looked at the inch size, and if it's between 4 inches to about 12 inches, we're able to root prune and take those out, preserve them, and then replace them back into the buffers. So that's why when Kelly was talking about, you know, making sure whatever fence we put along Minton Road doesn't affect any of that native vegetation, we're really serious about keeping all those trees and then replanting the existing trees to keep the aesthetics of the existing site, keep the native trees. If we have to replant more, they will still be large live oaks or sables or other pines that are native to the area.
Okay. Good. Ms. Fisher, my other questions are for you. I'm crossing out the ones that we've already discussed, so which is helpful. What is the height expected after the fill compared to the height of homes in Crystal Lakes West? We've heard different information so far about this property is lower, but fill's going to be coming in that makes it higher. And when we're talking about flooding, that's a question.
Yeah, I know it's hard to read on this. I see a note that says finished floor elevation 27 feet. So if you go to, you know, what I'm going to sort of point out is this note. Can you all see my cursor? And then there's this little rectangle that says 26 feet. They're saying with this, what's called a little leader line, this little tiny period, this little dot, that it's 26 and a half. And then if you look, there's a really light number here that says 27.58. So those are elevations. They haven't put the little tick mark to say it's feet, but those are elevations. And so the finished floor, as expected, because they need to be 18 inches above the crown of their road, so there's not a lot of information about what that height is. I see one that says 25.70, so that sounds about right. And then if you picture 2 stories, you know, and the developer can probably say what height that is. So it's 27 feet plus, let's say it's another 14 feet. That may be comparable to what they have here in Crystal Lakes West. You know, if I'm looking at an elevation that says 27 feet at the property line, not sure what the pad is for the house, but it's probably a little bit taller than 27 feet. So is it going to be exact? Probably not, between the 2 developments in terms of the building, in terms of a house in Crystal Lakes West versus a townhouse. Are they going to be at the same exact height? May not be. But is one, like the townhouse lot, going to be 3 times taller? Absolutely not. I can see from these numbers that it's going to be very close.
Okay. The developer had said they're not, you know, if there's development happening on this property, we're then going to have a drainage system in place which should address any flooding concerns. With that being stated in a public meeting, are there any options that the neighborhood has or the city has if, you know, they're coming back to us a couple years from now and saying, the flooding in our neighborhood has gotten worse. If we move forward with this project, you know, West Melbourne does a whole lot. I know Mr. Bentley and I go to the state representatives to try to lobby for, you know, money for these flood risk reduction projects. And I don't want to come back to this neighborhood and say, great, now we've got to go find money from the state to fix flooding rather than addressing it now.
Absolutely, and I think staff is very aware that it's what I call systemic. And that's why I mentioned the other agencies, St. John's River Water Management District and Melbourne-Tillman Water Control District, and even the city. I mean, the one gentleman, Mr. Frank, talked about working with the Public Works Department about the maintenance on Flanagan and that canal. Everything has to be maintained. All of the drainage in this general area, what we would call a sub-basin of drainage, has to be maintained. Otherwise, that's when you get some of the issues. But in terms of the stormwater for this particular project, you know, we know that everything sort of has to work together, and that's where you all are absolutely correct that sometimes the rosiest picture is put forward even in stormwater calculations and the reports from the developer. Well, it's the city's engineer's job to take a look at that, to consult with other agencies. So if that takes 1, 2, 3 months, whatever it takes to get through that, then that's what it's going to be. Now, let's go to construction. We may have everything approved on paper, is what I call it. And then in construction, things may change. If that takes another year or whatever to kind of work through those issues, that's the way the city currently addresses drainage, is that, you know, the first step is a paper step. The second step is construction. And if there's something that happens with construction that needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed.
So we'd be keeping eyes on that,
We would.
especially during heavy rainfalls.
Yeah. We would, and that's certainly something that we can, you know, talk to our city engineer about. But remember that the engineering standards are not for like a 100-year flood. They're not meant for retaining hurricane waters or tornado waters. It's really meant for the more typical sort of rain events. But if you're talking about, you know, Tropical Storm Faye with 30 inches, there's no way that anything can be designed to that.
No, understood, but Florida still gets a rainy season.
We do, absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep.
What other items, I know you've done some work in terms of doing some national searches to try to bring some commercial to that area, and we're just not seeing it. So what other items could go there if we deny this request? What are we looking at?
From my perspective, we have not had any interest from any institutions, so meaning churches and other types of uses. Those type of uses tend to want to go to properties that used to be homesteads, and that probably has to do with dollar amounts. That probably has to do with the cost of the properties.
We don't want another church on Mitten Road?
I'm just sort of answering what I've seen as, you know, since 2007, sort of the pattern. The pattern that folks have identified of apartment complexes is a real pattern. That is something that we've seen. No commercial developer has even talked about, well, what about mini storage on this site? This site just doesn't seem to have a lot of interest unless it's for some sort of residential. That's what I've seen.
So we're not seeing the commercial. We could see the apartments. Okay.
That's right. No,
Understood.
I haven't had anybody inquire about commercial.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you finished, Ms. Adams? All right, thank you very much. All right, the next, Mr. Gaylord.
Ms. Fisher, can you expound a little bit on some of the negative impacts that could occur regarding some of the residents' concerns with flooding, the access on Burdock, and some of the other issues we have going on, some of the other concerns we have, if indeed, you know, a developer tried to take advantage of live local on this property? I know you have some data in your presentation about 333 units going up versus, you know, the 150 that this developer is proposing for this project, 120. So would you be able to kind of expand on some of the lack of control that the city would have if a developer came in wanting to utilize the Live Local Act?
Yeah, the Live Local Act, let me go to this next slide. The first sentence, like I said, I don't like to read these verbatim, but it is important to note that in 2023, the state automatically allowed affordable housing on commercial and industrial designated lands in cities without public hearings. So that's significant in that it would be an administrative approval type of process, that these types of plans and whatnot would not be in front of the Planning and Zoning Board, in front of you. They would just come straight to city staff. So there's no public announcement that, you know, developer X wants to, you know, build 333. If the neighbors, you know, heard about it, certainly they could come. It's all public record. Once it gets submitted to the city, they could look at it. And then the developer has to meet our codes for those 333 units. But again, the city, there's certain things that we cannot do. We cannot say to them, well, you can only build a third of that. We cannot say to them, you can only go 20 feet in height or 24 feet in height. If they wanted to go 50 feet in height, they could. There's certain other provisions that they would have to do. But just think of it this way. If you have a vacant piece of land, the more that you put on it, the more that has to be done for the stormwater. And then in terms of Burdock Avenue and your question about that, again, that's why we keep repeating that's a private access, and the city doesn't have the ability to say, Mr. Developer of 333 units, you cannot have access to Burdock. They would need to get, Crystal Lakes West and their attorney and this apartment complex, they could work that out. But city staff does not have that right to do it because it's a private agreement.
So from what I was hearing based on, Ms. Adams's question concerning commercial opportunities and commercial developers, the lack of interest in developing these spaces, would you say that council's decision regarding this project could potentially open up the opportunity for a developer to come in, utilize the Live Local Act to develop 333 units, as you've prepared in your presentation? Regarding the council's decision, do you think that that opportunity is available to a potential developer that may want to come in and utilize that act?
It is, because that's what the state of Florida wanted to happen. They want these commercial and industrial lands that don't have the multifamily designation. So multifamily is another way of saying apartment sort of designation, to be available, even though there are other areas in the city that already have that zoning for apartments. The state of Florida purposely said there's not enough housing in the state of Florida. Therefore, we as a state legislator are going to say that now apartments that are affordable can be placed on commercial and industrial lands, and that's vastly different than what we've ever had before.
And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this was in the staff report. Was any analysis done on the exacerbation of, sewage, flooding, traffic, comparative to Live Local, compared to this proposal specifically, or any other kind of analysis done there?
There wasn't an analysis on what would be the maximum impact from Live Local Act. The only analysis was really from 402,000 square feet of the commercial. I can tell you that, if we have 120 units proposed for this, but 333, that obviously there are going to be more toilets and more sinks, and there's going to be probably bigger lines and maybe more lift stations or more things that have to be done to water and sewer. That just goes hand in hand. That's just like anything. If you have more spaghetti than can fit in the pot has to get bigger.
Okay, and final thing, because I don't want to monopolize everyone's time. So Ms. Adams did mention there's a consideration here with regards to private property rights. I know, we had discussed this previously. Can you expound a little bit about the city's ability to potentially halt development or lack of control regarding controlling development within the city, and how that may impact or have sway over potential decisions regarding this?
Well, it's as I said, that the Private Property Act is something we've had in Florida for a long time. What changed, I want to say like 3 or 4 years ago, is that the state of Florida said it's not just enough that it's sort of on the books for the state. Each of the local governments has to have a chapter in their comprehensive plan that talks about specific points. One, that private property owners can develop their property, and that the city council has to use good judgment to that effect. And the city attorney can probably tell you a little bit more about it, but to me, that's sort of the gist of it, that there's private property and you can't make irrational decisions to stop that property from being developed. That, to me, is the gist of what that's about. Mr. Carey, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, the real effect of it is whatever zoning category and future land use category the land has, a developer or somebody who wishes to develop the property and owns it is allowed to develop it in accordance with the standards that are in our land development code.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
Are you finished, Mr. Gaylord? Oh, yes. All right, Mr. Frampus?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the planning consultant misspoke. There is an emergency access road for Crystal Lakes off of Flanagan, correct, Christy?
If you're,
I mean, we can agree on that. I mean,
Yeah, for Crystal
there
Lakes.
is that. There
Yep,
is,
there's,
right?
there's an emergency,
So it's
secondary emergency exit.
right. Okay. So it's not typically. It's not totally one way in and one way out. It's
Correct.
Have an emergency access.
It's gated and secured, but during emergency, personnel have access.
And as far as Live Local or the project presented, you stated on many occasions that you have to provide us with the maximum number that can go there. In reality, more than likely, it's not going to be 333 homes, correct?
well, that I don't know about.
It could be.
It
but in
could be,
reality-
and the reason it could be is because of that height. If the height was just going to be a height limit of 20 feet, 24 feet, then probably I would agree with you 100%. But once you have the ability to go 4 stories, possibly 5 stories with units, then that means the footprint of the buildings is not going to be spread as much. So on average, remember how I've said if you have a piece of land that's 20 acres, 20 to 30% of that is going to be for stormwater. There's going to be a certain percentage for parking, so that minimizes how much area. But the minute you can go up, like in South Florida, you can go up really high, then you can have a lot of units.
And also, the Live Local Act would require to be 65% residential, 35% commercial, because it's mixed use.
That's right.
Okay, so businesses would also be there, so.
Businesses would be there too.
As far as changing the comp plan, we're within our rights as a council to say no to change the comp plan, correct? That's not in question. If we say no, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's correct. When I said earlier that the developer can develop in accordance with the zoning and the future land use, that's the future land use that is currently on the property. So they can develop in accordance with that. In general, there's not a right to a zoning or comp plan change.
So, Mr. City Manager, how many Live Local projects do we have currently on the books for West Melbourne?
We currently have no Live Local projects.
So we keep saying
have been
Live
developed.
Local a lot, but we really don't know. It's a guessing game, right? If a developer wants to meet the requirements, and obviously they can do Live Local, right? I mean.
Correct.
So, and we talk about the state, we don't have any statistics as far as projects throughout the state or whether somebody was fighting them or not. We don't know any of that.
There's litigation in Brevard County for Live Local, and there's litigation across the state for Live Local.
But no, as far as cities fighting it, is that a city issue or is that a resident, or is that residents fighting Live Local? What's
Yeah, I
because
guess
I took the opinion from the gentleman that was talking, it was they were going to handle it from a resident's point of view and fight it that way, not have the city fight it for them. That's how I took that statement, and
yeah, as far as a city
kind of thing,
Yep,
rather than a.
If the city wanted to fight a Live Local project, that would be the city council's desire, not the residents. The residents could also take legal action, but the city council would have to decide to take that action if the city council wanted to.
And currently, Live Local hasn't asked for this property, correct?
No,
We don't
because
have a plan presented for this property.
no, because it's been under contract from this development group.
Since Live Local passed?
Yeah, Live Local passed in '23, and this project came to us right around that same time. I want to say I don't recall our first meeting, and certainly actually a question for the developer when the project came under agreement.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was in development that long. I just think we can't make decisions on fear of what could happen. We have to look at what's in front of us and decide whether it's a better plan, changing it or not. And I'm going to stand by my decision. Thank you.
Mr. Bentley.
Thank you, Mayor. Two questions. Mr. Rohde, was there discussion of a I guess we're calling this live local, complex going in the former mayor's old neighborhood?
We did have conversations with the developer for Heritage Oaks and Doherty. That project never came forward. I'm not quite sure what the status is of that project.
But there was one at Heritage and Minton.
And so, Christy,
I'm sorry. Yeah, Heritage and Minton. Heritage and Doherty is in a subdivision. My apologies. That Doherty's the wrong street. Heritage and Minton.
Thank you. Christy, some of the angst of the community, I think, was that Burdock Avenue they didn't want it to be used by this Grove area, Minton Grove. Is that correct?
That's our understanding, yes.
So that being the case, or if that is the case, if this stayed commercial or if this went a live local route, wouldn't either one of those two entities be able, based on the law, be able to do an ingress and exit, entrance and exit, whether the community wanted them to or not by law? Does that make sense?
By the easement agreement, so there's an actual agreement
right.
that they have in place, and that's legally binding. So
right.
That's what you mean. It is legally binding. So
right. So either one of those could use it as an entrance and exit, which would be horrific for traffic.
Right, and that's why I said if the residents or HOA of Crystal Lakes wanted to fight that, that's probably where the attorneys would get involved. The Crystal Lakes West attorney and whoever wants to use it if there is a dispute about that. It's not a dispute that the city would enter into.
I agree. So the only reason this isn't being argued currently is that the developers agreed voluntarily to not use it as an exit.
That's what they've said. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, all my lights have cleared. Anyone else on the council want to talk about this before I get my comments in here? Okay. All right, so the Flanagan Canal, is that a city or a Tillman Canal?
Flanagan is West Melbourne.
And so this is correct, it's not working properly, and we're going to have to fix it regardless of what project goes in there.
A very detailed conversation about the Flanagan Canal.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to thank you very much. So you've already answered my question about what's going to happen to that little stub out. There's nothing the city can do about it. They can use it as they wish. That brings me to the rentals. So if this were to go through, and this is an owner-occupied development, we know what happens to owner-occupied developments. I live in one, and it has turned into a lot of rentals. So do you plan to, in your HOA docs, limit rentals to, say, 10% of the entire community and none in the first 24 months or anything like that? What are your HOA docs going to look like?
Hey, guys. Andrew Dixon, I'm the developer. Just real quick, just to give you some background.
Address, please. What? Your address, please.
Oh, my address?
It can be your firm's address.
99 Northwest 64th Street. That's my home address. Don't come over there. I'm just teasing. Just to give you guys some background, when I first got the parcel under contract, my first meeting with Christy, she said, under no circumstances, do not come in with Live Local, which was my first instinct was to try to get Live Local in. And I've worked with her to not do the Live Local to sit, to play nice in the sandbox and not, didn't want to create any problems with the city, and I wanted to create a project that I thought was going to be helpful to the community. And also the Shields, which is the original property owner that sold Crystal Lakes West. In my contract with them, the Shields specifically wanted to have the right to approve or disapprove my project that I was going to bring to the city. So they did not want me to do apartments. They didn't want me to do rentals. They did not want me to do anything with Live Local, which is why I created a townhouse community. I have no intention of doing anything rental related, and will put, if it pleases you guys, I can include language that restricts people from renting, or like one individual owning like the entire community and then renting it out. It's really a project where I'm trying to appease the community, and that's also why we did the not ingress, or just ingress but no egress off of Burdock, which is, we needed that access, and we listened to the community talk, and I thought that was a creative solution to really not allow people to use the road and reduce the traffic. And what I told them on a phone call was, if there is a traffic issue on going into Burdock, like common sense would tell me that we have 2 other entrances going into the project, and people going into my townhouse community will use those 2 other entrances and not use Burdock if that really is a traffic issue. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Ms. Mayor, Christie, he said that you told him they can't have Live Local. You didn't say that, right? I mean, that's not.
I didn't say that, but that staff does not desire it. I mean, I could certainly say to them.
We don't desire it, but you can't say you can't do it, because it's not, it wouldn't even go through you, right?
It would go through administrative site plan. So administrative site plan means that, yes, they do start with the planning department, but then it goes through the other departments for review of all the technical stuff that they need to, show with the drainage and the water and sewer.
But they could have done it if they wanted to. They just.
It would start with planning department, yeah.
Can you come back up to the dais, to the podium, please? So you said that you would put language in your HOA docs that would restrict rentals. You didn't say disallow rentals.
I mean, I don't want to disallow someone to use something that they buy. You know what I mean? If someone owns one townhouse unit and they want to use it as a rental, I don't know, I just don't think that's right to tell someone exactly what they should be doing, but I would think, I have no intention of selling it to someone wants to buy 10 units. I wouldn't allow something like that. I'm not trying to create a rental community.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do a 10% restriction. I mean, I have no issues with that.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. So the rest is, my other questions will be on the drawings that we have. So do you stay there and answer those? Or do you come back up? All right, Ms. Delmonico, could you come back up then? All right, so as you pointed out, the garbage trucks would come in. They could come in on Burdock, or they could come in on any other one. Come in on Burdock, we'll just use that one. Come in on that unnamed road, pick up pick up all the trash on one side of the street, then go up, turn around, come back down the other, and then use this little stub out to turn around and exit.
Yes.
So they could come in any of these others and do the same thing. And then if they get to the end, you turn around then. So you wouldn't need a cul-de-sac at the end, and you wouldn't need entrance then off Burdock either, because they can come in any of the other 2 entrances and still reach that same property.
So if we didn't have any access at all into Burdock, they would want us to have a cul-de-sac at the end.
Right, but with that little, you have to have you have to have the cul-de-sac. Yes. That little stub out isn't sufficient?
The dead-end length from where it's entrance off of Minton, it exceeds the dead-end lengths that the city allows for. So we really do need that access onto Burdock, and we're really trying to make the de minimis, that doesn't even make sense, the least amount of impact possible to Burdock, and we think we accomplish that by just allowing entrance in. It gives more flexibility to waste management. It gives more flexibility to people entering the neighborhood. We don't think people will use that as an access to the neighborhood if they have to wait. There's two other options. It's just another way to extend connectivity through there, and we have our pedestrian pathway through there as well. So what we could do is, if you look at the access that's there, Christy, could you pull up that, the image of the entrance itself, the street view photo? I think, yeah, we keep going, yep, go that direction. And we will hit it.
This one?
No, yep, get a little more. Yep, one more. Thank you. So the way that this one was designed is that's for an entrance and an exit. So it's a full turning movement with the tapers on both sides. What we could do to that is turn the taper like this, so that cars are only coming in from this direction headed in, and the taper is only for vehicles to enter in. We want to make it the least attractive for violating the law as possible. It's like the proverbial speed hump, right? We're just trying to make it less attractive. So signage, striping, and we can change the angle of that drive so it truly is an entrance only. So if someone comes out this way, what are they? They're gonna get like this weird access, and they'd have to go like backwards to get out. So I don't think people are going to do that. It's not going to benefit them to come out of Burdock, because that's where the traffic is backed up. They're going to exit out the other access points.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. So when we heard from the residents right now, I know that there was an issue. That's okay, I'm finished now. Finished with you. In the beginning, we did not want the Live Local. Then this project came up, and it seemed to be just fine. And I know that you were supporting this in the beginning, but now you don't support it at all. I've just heard you say that. Even if this passes, you would prefer commercial as opposed to this project. Well, I'm not asking you directly because it's closed now, but that's what I heard you say. And you would rather take your chances with it becoming Live Local than go ahead and put this through. You would prefer the commercial, is what I heard some of you say by name. So you'd no longer support this project at all. Okay, that's what I'm.
I'd just remind you, number one, that public hearing is closed in the audience.
Public hearing is closed.
And also that, this is a quasi-judicial matter, and that the decision has to be made on the evidence and the facts that have been presented to you, and not on public sentiment.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Andrea, can I get a question on that last slide?
You want to put your light
the
on?
one that
Ms.
showed.
Volz, I did not see your light. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ms. Volz?
Yeah, yeah, that one right there. Now, is that going to be closed off, this center lane?
Well, that's what I believe Kelly was talking about. Instead of this upright bollards, what they could do, you have a curb here. It could actually be a more pronounced curb that's upright, goes straight up, and connects these two islands.
Okay.
And I believe that's what you were talking about, Kelly, was connecting those two islands with some sort of curbing. So that if somebody who tries to, even if this is really angled to almost lead a person into here, if they tried to, they would be, and we have seen big trucks go over curves, but they're a lot less likely to do that.
Well, how far west would somebody have to go in order to come in the other direction? Like if they somehow or another.
Kelly, do you have the dimension? Because I don't know the dimension.
I don't know how
right
far
now
they would have to go.
The distance from
Yeah.
road to where your mouse just was, go back one island.
Here.
That's 520 feet.
Okay.
So a little less than that, like a third less than 520. Don't make me do math.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are you finished, Ms. Volz? Yes.
Can I just comment on that real quick? Again, it's a private road. We have no say in it, and you wouldn't have any input on that anyhow, correct?
No.
Okay.
The only input we would have would be, is the curbing designed right? Is it doing the right for flooding, but
But
not.
as far as we couldn't have any enforcement on whether they did it or not. Thank you.
All right, we're looking for 3 separate motions. The first one would be on the small-scale comprehensive plan. What is the wishes of the council? Going once. Item dies for lack of a motion.
Motion, make the motion to, on the small-scale
Can you speak into your mic, Helen, so we can hear you?
I guess I better turn it on too, huh? Sorry. I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and approve 2024 small-scale amendment.
Is there a second?
There isn't?
Motion dies for lack of the second. Without the first one, then there's no point in doing the others. Is that correct, Kirsty?
I'm going to let the city.
Mr. Carey, is that correct? Without the first?
Yeah,
the
yeah,
others
if you don't
die?
approve the land use change, then you can't approve the zoning.
All right, thank you very much. That item is finished. We'll go to public forum. Okay, persons wishing to speak. All right, we have a public forum speaker. Thank you. Will Decker? Okay, we'll go to the next one. We'll give him a chance to come back. John Tice.
I don't understand them leaving. I used the mouthwash. I'm John Tice, 67 Stevenson Drive, West Melbourne, Florida. I have some pictures. Can I give those to you?
I'm going to start your timer when you get back to the podium.
You're too kind.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
For history's sake, I moved here in 1959. I bought the house that I'm in 1979. My dad had the first bakery here in West Melbourne called Tice's Bakery. So that's the historical feature. Now we'll go to the picture I gave you. I'm going to address two things. One, we just had a road put in. I think it ended up being put in on Halloween, and it's been a nightmare already. So this first picture is right in front of my house where it turns into Gordon's Food Service. You can see that that happened at 12:45 today. The road just got destroyed by a truck. And I understand that the resurfacing is just a micro, and it's not really thick, but that's not going to last very long if that's what's going to happen with one truck. Also, there's grass growing through it. I took the liberty of, well, let me go back for full disclosure. I live at 67. My daughter lives at 90, which is catty corner across the street from me. And I took the liberty to edge all the way from her house to 192 next to Gordon's Food Service because their guys didn't edge. And that was so that when they put the road in, it would be straight. And so I had my kids look. I said, does that look straight? And they said, yeah, it looks pretty straight. So I'm 72. I don't see good anymore. I especially don't have my glasses. So if I, just so you know, I can't see. But anyway, so when the 2 and 3 and 4 pictures shows, obviously, the street's not like I edged it. It's not straight. And so, and you can see in a couple of them where the grass is growing through in just a couple weeks. So I'm a little bit worried about that. The next 6 photos are of the ditch, supposed ditch behind the houses on that side of the road. As you can see, if you look at those, it's all blocked. literally blocks in some places, fences in other places, and the ditch doesn't exist anymore. So if you wonder why that side of the road has been complaining about flooding for the last 10 years, there's your answer. The last one picture shows a drain that I dug up. So there's periodic drains through there that are grown over and don't drain.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, so there's no drain there for them to drain. There's no place for the water to go this way or that way because of all the blockage. And so the holding pond doesn't even get any of the water. It all goes into our neighbors' yards. And so I addressed this about 8 or 9 years ago, and it fell on deaf ears apparently because it's still the same. Also,
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Hey, you're taking my time saying that. I called Adam 4 or 5 times. I never got a call back, but I had a problem across the street. They marked it out in red where they were going to repair the road before they put in the new road. And they didn't. They just came over it, and so it's a big glob there. So anyway, that's the problems. Hopefully we can do something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Tice. Next is Patrick Sorum.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, are you Patrick Sorum? All right. And what is your name, sir?
My name is Will Decker.
Oh, you're Will Decker. Okay.
Just so you know, the rules of the council that you all have passed does not allow somebody to give somebody else their time. That is allowed.
But before I even speak, I just want to show.
Just a minute. So please state your name and your address for the record. And
Decker, I'm at 193 Stevenson Avenue, this wonderful city, in this wonderful city of West Melbourne.
thank you.
This is what's happening, what Mr. Tice was explaining. They built a wall over the drainage and finished their property off, and their drains go into people's yards now. They actually just blocked it, built their property out, and that's been brought to the town's attention. That's what's been brought to the town's attention several times by myself and other neighbors. That water runs over the property and into
And speaking to the mic.
that water runs over the property and into the drainage, and it doesn't help what's going on. Anyway, I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of Stevenson Drive, several who are present tonight. The City of West Melbourne just completed a 2-year drainage water project on Stevenson Drive. We would like you to know that the system is not working. The first test of the new drainage system was during Hurricane Milton. The hurricane brought an average rainfall, yet the canals, culverts, and detention ponds overflowed. As a result, the drains backed up and properties flooded. This never happened before in such a small rainfall. In addition, all drains, culverts, and canals are always filled with stagnant water. They never drain. This is a major health concern. It is a breeding ground for mosquitoes that bring deadly diseases. We did not have this problem before. We would like you to know that the execution of the project was crude. Various drain grates are set too low. There is no uniformity of height. Lawns were altered to steep drops to cover this up. These drains should have risers. There's been many complaints about this. One culvert is completely underwater or mud, creating a backflow. All culverts lack the required riprap, which is the rocks, as planned specified. This is why the canals keep collapsing. Concrete driveways cracked within a week. The city's solution was to cut off the cracked sections haphazardly. The digging of the culverts left 2 electric poles exposed 5 feet below the surface. These poles are about 70 years old and rotten. The dig left them unstable, and now they are actively shifting. We've been fighting with the electric company and have them replaced for 3 months. They should be replaced immediately before they cause outages, surges, house fires, or possible death. The repaving of Stevenson Drive built up the road before and after the speed humps, leaving them virtually ineffective. The asphalt was laid sloppy. The edges run into lawns and onto driveways. It is already disintegrating and grass is growing through. We would like you to know that we, the residents, were treated how we were treated during the project. The project manager's position is to be sure the engineer's plans are executed properly by the contractors. Instead, he buddied with the contractors, creating a elusive, negative, and intimidating environment towards us. This is why the results are shoddy. We had no say. The project was to prevent our homes from flooding. It was a promise to improve our neighborhood. We still have flooding, but now we have an infrastructure that looks slipshod. To complete the job, we want drain risers to make all drains uniform, asphalt edges trimmed so they are straight, riprap in the culverts as the plan requires, electric poles replaced, speed humps restored to functionability, a discussion of how to handle the mosquito problems, and a discussion that includes us to find a resolution to the flooding. That's it. I have a lot of pictures for you. I have.
Andrea?
Yes, I'm going to call,
Oh, okay.
I'm going to call the next speaker.
I had a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. City Manager, is this something that you're aware of? And I mean, it seems to me that they should be calling in and discussing it with you, and maybe you can check it out and get back to us on this, and we don't have to, that way we'll have information from your office.
Yeah, we do have a meeting at Mr. Decker's house tomorrow at 10:30.
After that meeting, can you get
11:30. We do have a meeting on site, and we have asked the contractor and our team to be present
you'll
and
let us know the results?
evaluate these concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Decker.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Mr. Fusco or Ms. Fusco? Is there a Fusco, Mr. or Mrs. Fusco? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Council, my name is Estefano Fusco. I live at 98 Stevenson Drive in West Melbourne. As Mr. Will had addressed, most of our concerns, it feels like we were kind of used and abused. My wife has lived in this neighborhood since 1996, and we've had the same neighbors for the longest time. I'm actually John Tice's daughter's neighbor. We live right next door to each other. And before this construction started happening, we've had multiple hurricanes, multiple storms, and the draining wasn't an issue. We had very shallow ditches, but a ditch nonetheless, and we were never worried about water flow or anything like that. And since the new construction, we've actually had water almost right at our front door. And Hurricane Milton, as unfortunate as it was on the West Coast, it didn't bring much rain for us on the East Coast, but I saw more water in my front yard than I've ever seen in the 8 or 9 years that I've lived in that residence, so much so that I actually put a kayak on my front porch so my kids could play. Our neighborhoods have become unsafe. I know that people passing through, like this was a concern addressed with the Milton Grove, or Mitten Grove thing. Our road has become a cut through for many, many people. And I know that's not something that we can essentially address, but the speed humps did slow people down. Like, I used to let my children run up and down the street, ride their bikes and whatnot. Now it just feels unsafe because cars don't slow down at those speed humps anymore. They actually speed up because there's no resistance to the traffic. And as far as drainage goes, there's been plenty of issues with it. There is stagnant water. I work outside constantly. I work with my shop door wide open, and I'm like a mosquito magnet now. I can't do that. It's become unsafe for my kids to be out front. They come in, red bumps and scratches and itches all over themselves, and I've never seen it as bad as it is now. Our roads were just finished on Halloween Day, and the amount of candy wrappers and flip-flop prints you saw in the freshly paved concrete was just crazy. And as well as the traffic with semi-trucks dropping off food to that Gordon's, that GFS right there, the damage that happened just today, I saw with my own eyes when that truck was trying to back out, blew my mind because this road's brand new and it's already got so much damage to it. But other than that, Will really addressed all of our concerns, and I would like to have this addressed. I would also like to be present for this meeting tomorrow with the city manager, because it is important. It's the safety of our children, it's the future of our homes, and it's a big concern. But that's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Fusco. Nicole Ohana? Oh, it's not a no, it's a C. I'm sorry. Thank you.
My name is Nicole Channer. I live at 160 Stevenson Drive. And Will said it best, but admittedly, I was here a few months ago bringing it to the council of like, hey, we're having concerns. These things are happening. And some of the things I said have come true. The ditches aren't straight. They're retaining water. They're falling down. Like the dirt is being eroded away. There's always stagnant water, especially in my drains. I have 2 drains in my yard, and there's always water. It flows to the north, and I have been here for 4 years, lived in Florida most of my life. I've never had to dig drains during a hurricane. And in Milton, I was sitting there digging drains with my husband to get the water to flow away from our house. And in the 4 years we've been here, even in the heaviest storms in the summer and in the heaviest hurricanes we've never had to do that. It's always flowed. And this time, here we are trying to dig drains, trying to make sure water doesn't get into our house. And the same thing is happening in the backyard. When we first bought, there was a bit of a ditch, and now our neighbors to the back did build concrete walls, and they've got water flowing over into our backyard. But again, our biggest concern is the front yard and the flooding that's happening now and might continue on. The mosquitoes that are definitely coming out because now we can't sit on our front porch anymore at night when the sun's going down and relaxing. And just, we bought 4 years ago in 2020, and now we're looking at, okay, how do we make it drain from our yard? How do we help the water not affect our house? Do we need to get flood insurance now? And that's just a shame because a few months ago I was told, trust the process. Trust the building. Don't worry, it'll work. We're in the middle of construction right now. It'll work, it'll work, it'll work. And it hasn't worked. And we got really lucky with Milton. We ended up in a pocket for us. We didn't get as much water as we have even in some of the summer storms. So what does that mean when we get a good hurricane? What does that mean when we get a good summer storm? What's that gonna look like? And so we're just really disappointed. Not everyone could be here tonight. I know my husband's home with my kids. I know there's other people that were like, oh, I wish I could. I've got this and that and the other. I can't make it.
You have 30 seconds.
So like I said 2 months ago, we're trying to bring attention to it. Everyone's having a hard time getting here to tell you guys there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva Negamahali. Please state your name and address, please.
Eva Nagamahali, 3413 Willowwood Drive, Melbourne, Florida. This is going to be brief. I just want to address one thing in general, and that I believe in responsible development, and that's what I'm seeing today, and I appreciate it. I bring that up because on Minton Road, there was this beautiful land area with gorgeous trees on it. It's the one that's right next to that retirement home right near the post office. They cleared it all, and they left one beautiful stately pine tree right at the edge. And I went, oh my God, they saved one tree. Oh, the next day they took that down. So and it's vacant now for over a year. So I just want to make sure that we do save the trees that we can. Why take them down unless they're going to do something with it? And it just seems so sad because, again, there are little animals living out there, and we have raccoons. I had a bobcat living in my backyard. There's a lot out there that we have to work with and live in unison. So I appreciate it whenever we say, let's keep the trees we can. Let's be responsible with the nature that we have around us. It's a beautiful city, Melbourne, West Melbourne, Palm Bay, all of it, if we all do it with keeping in mind that nature and beauty and openness is what people want. So thank you, and thank you for tonight, and so happy that everything is going the way it should be going. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Nagamahali. Thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak in public forum? Anyone at all? We'll close the public forum and move on to consent agenda. All right, public forum is closed. It's consent agenda. Can I get a motion and a second for the consent agenda, please? Mr. Frampus?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
May I get a second?
Second.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have names right here. Mr. Bentley?
Second.
Thank you.
Second. Yeah.
All those in favor of passing the consent agenda as written signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, action agenda, non-consent, electrical switchgear.
Good evening, and congratulations to all the new council members and to the new mayor.
Thank you.
Mark Petroni, that if you don't know me, I'm the capital projects manager. And our topic of this is the purchase of electrical switchgear needed for the water treatment plant. Our consultants or engineers at Hazen and Sawyer have advised us that there's a lot of lead times on some of the electrical systems and recommended that we go out and obtain this system on our own through an owner direct purchase. So I took their technical specifications, sent it all out to get some bids, and we received 2. Now you may be wondering what is electrical switchgear, so I'll try to explain it on a little bit smaller scale. There's generator, with other hurricanes you've seen, we've had home generator advertisements from Generac, Kohler. Power goes off. A few seconds go by, the generator kicks on, now you got power back at the house. That's done through an automatic transfer switch. The generator for the water treatment plant is 2,000 kW. The ones for the house are about 22 kW. So an automatic transfer switch just won't cut it. So we need what's called a switch gear, which is basically a transfer switch on steroids. It's a pretty big unit. It's about 21 feet wide and about 7 feet deep and weighs about 7 tons. When we went out and got pricing, as you can see, we did get 2 bids. It's a very big unit that needs to go. So if the power goes off for the treatment plant, the generator, when it kicks on, has a very large load, and this transfers the power so the water treatment plant stays online. So the 2 bids that we got from the fiscal standpoint that you can see, we've got one from Gray Bar, which was all approved through called Square D, which is the manufacturer. That was the engineer's recommendation and approval. The second one was from the Eaton Corporation, and those are both attached for you to see. So from the fiscal standpoint, the switchgear is a necessary part of the water treatment plant. It has been included in the total cost of the water treatment plant. And based on the differences that you can see of almost $600,000, I'm here to recommend that you approve and authorize the city manager execute a contract with the Eaton Corporation to purchase their low voltage electrical switchgear package in the amount not to exceed the net total of the $976,385. And I'm here to answer any questions as best I can.
Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Petroni, I did notice looking at the attachments in the staff report, 13A5 is a breakdown with comments and clarifications from Eaton about the piece, but I didn't see the same thing in regards to Gray Bar in terms of their breakdown. So as someone without an electrical background experience, is it safe to assume that all of the different qualifications and details they've outlined about the piece in the Eaton breakdown is the same as Gray Bar, or is there a difference, therefore justifying the price difference?
Well, if you look at the proposal, there's a very amount of dark fine print that I can't even read with my glasses that does get into the specifications.
I saw that, but most of that fine print talked about their limitations of liability.
Correct. It's kind of protecting them. So when I did reach out to them, all I was told is that it does match the technical specifications that I sent to them from Hazen and Sawyer without the breakdown. And then the fact that it was actually $600,000 higher than the one that does have the breakdown kind of set me not to keep on exploring and have them kind of justify that particular price.
Okay. I was just really curious because my eyes did read the small fine print and I did not see the things that were written in here the same way. So that's why I was asking. I'd like to make a motion to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Eaton Corporation as written.
Second.
We still have questions here. Mr. Bentley.
I was going to say second, but I'll let that go and let her do it then.
All right, Mr. Frampus.
Just to be clear, this is coming out of the bond money that we just got?
It's all, yeah, this has all been factored into the total cost.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion from Ms. Adams. We have a second from Ms. Volz. All those in favor of going for the new switchgear in the amount of $976,000, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Looks like we bought a switchgear. All right, thank you
Crazy, but we're moving.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item is relocation of city gas line on Sheridan Road for septic to sewer project.
Correct. Me again. In large infrastructure projects, this actually tends to happen where when we're digging in the ground, we come across another utilities line that was ahead of us, and this is kind of what we're at. The 15 homes on Sheridan are going to be converted, part of our septic to sewer conversion project. Once the contractor started and commenced, we called in our utility locates, started seeing the gas line, requested them to do soft digs, which means instead of getting a machine out there to potentially hit anything, they're doing it by hand. That revealed 3 problems. Number one, the gas line was 3 feet or so further to the south than where it was originally thought. The second item, it was not at 4-foot depths that they're usually supposed to be. It goes from anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. And then the third part of the problem is that it snakes basically to the south, in and out, versus following a straight line. So this has created a conflict with our gravity sewer that we have to put in. Being 3 foot over, we have to get to the depths of the sewer, we have to go down about 10 to 12 feet. We need an 8-foot wide trench box and a very big machine to get to those depths. The shallowness really prevents that heavy of a machine to be put on top of it, even with a steel plate, because it could potentially press down the gas line. So there's one problem. The trench box width gets really close to it, and then the fact that the gas line is snaking now into the south line is actually putting it directly into the path of the sewer line. And based on those 3, it really makes it impossible to do this on a safety factor. I've worked with the engineer, we've worked with the contractor, and the contractor is not comfortable. It's a really unsafe situation. Even have worked with the gas company to see what options are available. Based on everything that you're seeing here, I've got their contract, I've got their invoice. The best course of action based on everybody's conclusion is to get it out of the way, which means we're going to move it from the south side over to the north side so we can put the sewer line in and get those people off their septic system. The cost of the relocation is within all the grant funds that we've received for the project, so there's no money coming out of pocket from the city. Based on that, I'm here to also ask you to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Florida City Gas to relocate approximately 1,700 linear feet of their gas line from the south side of Sheridan Road to the north side for amount not to exceed at this point of $174,806.24. And then with that, I'll try and answer all the questions as best I can on this one.
All right, questions from council. Mr. Bentley.
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve this, but I have a question after we get a second.
I'll second, because I have a question
Hold
also.
on, I have lights on here.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Frampus?
I'll second with a question.
Yeah, we all have questions.
All right, hold on just a second. Mr. Bentley, your question?
Thank you. Mr. Petroni, isn't the rest of that gas line along Sheridan Road then at a unsafe depth? You said it was only up to 18 to 24 inches and it's supposed to be 3 feet down or something, I thought you said.
Well, I only located it in the location that we're going to be affected.
Yeah,
I don't know, I can't vouch on what other areas because we're not putting sewer line on the rest of the areas, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
But at the extreme points that you stopped digging, was it still only 18 inches to 24
There
inches?
were some areas that are only 18 to 24, other areas were at 36, but it's definitely not, it was put in about 50 years ago. So there's been a possible lot of settlement, but that's kind of what we found out. It just It's not where it really should be.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frampus, your question?
To Mr. Bentley's point, everybody's required to mark it out before they dig anyhow, right? I mean,
They were supposed to locate, correct?
supposed to locate it. So, and would anybody else be digging there besides us?
Not for the sewer, no.
I'm guessing that you can't, the whole gas line has to be moved before you can start trenching and put your trench box in and get the sewer in. So it doesn't make any sense to run the gas line parallel with the sewer line, because you actually have to get the gas line running before you can actually dig up for your trench box, right?
Well, the gas line being there,
You have to move it first.
we've got to move it first.
That all makes sense to me, so, okay, thank you.
Ms. Volz?
Do you know who put that gas line in originally?
Whoever it was, it's a gas line, natural gas, so I don't know if it was Florida City Gas or if there's a previous gas I wasn't aware of 50 years ago. I wouldn't be able to.
Because I'm thinking why, well, I guess if it was 50 years ago, we can't go back and say, hey, you didn't put it in right, now you got to move it. So,
Well, the kind of way it works in the utility field, the first one's in, is in, and then you got to work around what was there. That line is a 4-inch pressurized main line, and it goes all the way up to, I think Ellis, and where the Wawa is where it kind of branches off from there. So it's doing a lot of service. It's a pretty big line. And it's in a steel case. It's not the typical yellow. If it was in the yellow, kind of like poly, we'd be able to play around with it, but it's a dangerous situation.
Are you finished, Ms. Volz? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion from Mr. Bentley. We have a second from Mr. Frampus. All those in favor of relocating the Florida City gas line, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries.
But have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. There we go. Purchase police department vehicles and associated equipment. Thank you, Chief.
Evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. So for this fiscal year, we budgeted for the purchase of 5 patrol squads and the replacement of 2 Special Investigations Unit vehicles. Those 2 SIU vehicles are currently on lease. Back when they started leasing, it was much more financially advantageous to lease for the city. That has changed in the last couple of years. It would allow for us to change out the undercover vehicles a little bit more frequently, but looking in the last year and a half, it just has not been feasible, which is why we budgeted to actually purchase vehicles for those 2 this year. So we're looking to replace their 2018 and 2019 vehicles. All of them currently have in the 70,000 to 80,000 mile range. So by the time these come in, we'll be probably in the 90 to 100,000 range. So, and then with each of these vehicles, we always work closely when they do come in with the city garage to make sure that we're replacing the vehicles that should be replaced, not just because of their years or their mileage. We want to know which ones are in the best shape and then make a determination and then swap out those vehicles. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, but we're looking for the approval to purchase 5 Ford Police Interceptor vehicles, 1 Chevy Traverse, and 1 Toyota Senna, and all these are on the FSA competitive bid process.
All right, thank you, Chief. What's the wishes of the council? Oh, Mr. Frampus?
I'll make a motion, we authorize the purchase of these vehicles as presented.
Ms. McGuire?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you very much. We have a motion, Mr. Frampus, and a second by Ms. McGuire. All those in favor of purchasing the vehicles, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. It was kind of quiet there, but I think I got
You better get a vote
4.
count too, since
Ms. Volz is not here. Can I just hear it? Can
I heard her from the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding.
I just want it recorded properly.
Yes, would you please take a roll?
Stepped out. 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Chief, that they're all coming out of the vehicle fund, obviously, right? That's these vehicles.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're the replacement vehicle fund.
They are.
Correct, yeah, and just to echo on what Councilmember Frampus is mentioning, just because we have some new council members. Several years ago, the city was in a tough spot. We had expanded the police department force and had a deficit with vehicles, and some vehicles were aging out. And so the city went out and borrowed from ourselves to purchase several vehicles. Do you know the exact count?
So in 2018, we purchased 10, and in 2019, we purchased 16, according to the budget records I found.
And so part of that lesson learned, not only with the expansion, but also obviously when you buy a lot of vehicles one year, and while each vehicle doesn't get the same use and the same mileage, eventually you do end up with that many vehicles at an age where they're going to be aging out. We created the vehicle replacement fund citywide, and so each department has its own account in that fund, and we put general fund revenue that comes in from the taxes into that account based on the percentage of the life of the expectancy of each vehicle, so that we can build up a pool of money so that we can purchase these vehicles with cash and not have to borrow or have to worry about the financing associated with that. And so we've created that fund in order to do that, and that fund has been very successful for us, and it's crossed all departments. So water department, it's all in one fund, but it's all designated per department. So the building department, the water department, the police department, city admin, you name it, they have a section in that vehicle replacement fund. And then if a vehicle is needed, we evaluate the fund in order to confirm that we can pay for it. So.
All right, thank you. Ms. Volz, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, no, I just wanted to make sure that I was out of the room when you all voted, and I wanted to vote yes.
We heard you from the bathroom, Mr. Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, Steve. All right, the fee schedule. I have it right here, Mr. Rohde. Building Department fee schedule.
So I'm going to have Mr. Bradford present this item.
Mr. Bradford.
But as Mr. Bradford's coming to the podium, the building department, as part of its fee schedule, anytime we adjust those fees, that has to come in front of the council, and we ask for council approval on the fee structure. As the city here has transitioned, just kind of taking a step back because we have some new members. We traditionally have had a contractor who has done our fire plans inspection. So that's a good example of that is when an apartment building or a restaurant or a large commercial project presents plans for construction. One of the many elements, there's sewer in there, there's water, there's storm water, there's obviously construction documents. One of the elements of that plan set is fire and life safety, and so sprinklers, strobes, fire exits, fire extinguishers, locations, all those elements, hydrants, all those elements need to be approved or reviewed and approved by a certified building fire inspector. And so we have been using a third-party entity. We had reached out to, based on the challenges of that relationship, we had worked with the county, and the county had done it many years ago, and we reached out to them. We went through an extensive process to coordinate and make sure that we were going to get the service that we need from the county, and the county's positioned very well now to offer that service to us as they offer that to other communities. And so as part of that, they now get the fees, which is appropriate because they're doing the work. But we don't, so this is kind of a double action tonight, and I'm kind of taking Tom's thunder, I'm sorry. It's kind of a double action tonight where we're eliminating the fees from our fee schedule because we are not providing that service, so the city attorney tells me we can't charge them double. I tried. But what we don't have is an admin processing fee, because they do drop those plans off to us. We do review that, make sure that they're complete and accurate, and then we do have to upload them into the county system. And then throughout the course of the project, which, you know, a small restaurant might be a couple of months, a large apartment building might be 2 years, we do need to coordinate those inspections. We do need to coordinate to make sure fees are paid and approvals are done before each step of the construction process proceeds. And so we've come up with a generic admin fee of $100 in order to charge to upload and manage the fire plans inspection process.
So is Tom going to
Sorry,
get a
Tom.
word in here?
I'm happy to agree with everything Mr. Rohde said and answer any additional questions.
I love the presentation.
All right, then. What are the wishes of the council in here? Need a motion? Yes, please, Mr. Frampus, yes. Sorry, I didn't see the light, sorry.
What I gather you're saying is they're responsible to pay the third-party fee prior to submitting in, they get the documents signed off, and then they submit it as it, and we check it all over as an admin fee. So all the payments go to them first, and then
Correct.
Then they bring it to us.
Correct.
Or do they come to us first, get the paperwork they need, and then follow the process?
They drop off the full, so we're the clearinghouse for the full set of plans. So some of you have been at City Hall and walked past the front counter when the developer drops off a roll of plans that are yay big, and even though we're in an electronic world, they're still physical plans because they need to be stamped, and they need to be, multiple sets need to be stamped. One set needs to be on site, one set we keep for our records. So we take everything in, and then we don't charge for that because, as an example, for the sewer utility work that's done on a project like that, we have a fee structure set up in our fee table that covers the cost of that. So,
I guess,
but the $100, because they're paying the county now to do that service, we're not capturing
We're
it.
requiring them to go to the county. They couldn't use a third-party carrier like Wigginton Fire Services or something along those lines.
Correct. The state of Florida has allowed contractors to be able to use third-party, but if they are not using a third party, then the county is our de facto fire marshal.
They are the third party, the county. But
Essentially,
we're not requiring them to use the county, but they could if they
No, where the state of Florida has stepped in and allowed contractors to use third party, that still stands.
Okay, that's what it wasn't. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you want to make a motion with that, Mr. Frampus?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve this as written.
Can I get a, I'm sorry, I don't have a light on for a second. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Holtz, thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Frampus and a second by Ms. Holtz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, City Council liaisons to some of our committees. The only thing I would ask on this is that if we're going to be a liaison to a committee, please go to the meeting. If you're not going to be able to go to the meeting, then please contact our clerk, and then she will contact the alternate. Is that correct? Is that the, all right. So the first one is Space Coast Transportation. That's TPO.
Mayor, I sincerely apologize for interrupting. Megan or Christian, could one of you pull up the list on the screen of the committee assignments so that everybody on the council can take a look at that list? I apologize, Mayor. Now we get to watch our wonderful city clerk operate the computer system and find this magic document. And just like when the city manager tries to do technology, Tom Bradford comes to the rescue. My apologies, Mayor. I'm sorry.
I keep thinking you're talking to Pat.
do in a year. So press the wrong button.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have been the liaison to the TPO for several years now. I'm currently the chair. I have the ability of remaining the chair or being the chair again if I'm elected at the TPO to be the chair, so I would like to keep this position, but we do need a new alternate. Is there an alternate that would like to be on the TPO?
What does the alternate have to do? Do they have to show up at all the meetings also?
Yes, you would have to show up at all the meetings. You wouldn't have to chair, though. There's a vice chair.
As the chair, you're already on the committee, right? I mean,
Well, I am, but if for some reason I couldn't show up, then the vice chair would take that. I'm just looking for,
would they be the chair at that point?
no, there's a vice chair.
That's why I said, if you're already the chair, couldn't we appoint somebody else as?
Because there's already one right here, see it on the paper.
No, I got that.
I'm kidding.
I didn't think you needed to hold both positions. We could have had a second.
I'll put it to city manager. Do we need an alternate for this since there is a,
That
since
wasn't
I'm
what I
chair?
was talking about.
Okay.
You're already on the committee.
Yes.
I think he's saying for like Space Coast League of Cities, I'm already on the leadership team, so we're allowed to have another and then an alternate on top of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Got
that's
it.
what I'm saying.
I understand. I
didn't
just,
know. So you don't want to do that?
if we don't need another person to be there, then I certainly don't have somebody else to drive out to Rockledge. I think having one of us drive out there
You know,
is
if
enough.
somebody wanted to volunteer to do it, that's all.
Mr. Gaylord?
Mayor Young, when are those meetings?
They are generally the fourth Thursday of the month, and they are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it is at the Center for Collaboration way out on US 1. So it is a ways out there. Someone might just like to go to maybe be the TPO liaison for the following year when I'm no longer on this. Someone else might like to learn about it. It's very interesting. Okay.
Sounds interesting. I just have work at that time, so.
Oh, you'll be at work at that time. Okay, so then we just won't have an alternate for there. And
I'll try for one meeting and see, and then, I don't know how far it is, and I'll do the alternate, but
Well, you're not required.
you just want to sample? You just want to sample the position?
exactly. Okay.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. We'll move on to the MPO Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC. We've had Mr. Rohde, and before Mr. Rohde, we had Mr. Morgan, and we have Christie, and then we have two others that are on the CAC, which has generally been Sandy and Gil.
Yeah, the TAC is a staff-driven arm of the TPO, and so certainly council can attend, but this is intended to be a staff-driven technical advisory group.
And I'd like to keep it that way.
Everybody's still willing, right?
Yeah, so we would request that we keep that lineup.
Okay. And what about the CAC for Gil Ramirez and Sandy Sullivan? Sandy Sullivan, oh my gosh. Sandra Mitchelson.
Well, good thing we have, I thought she left. Good thing we have Sandy Mickelson. Sandy, would you like to be the alternate still? And I have not heard from Gil any different as far as membership, so.
Can we contact him? There you are. Can we contact him, please, and make sure that he still wants that position so we don't have to look for someone else? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on down to the Space Coast League of Cities. Pat Bentley has been our liaison there for ages. You going to keep that?
Yes.
All right, we're going to keep that. And Helen is our alternate. Are you going to keep that?
I didn't know I even was.
I've never missed, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Plus Diana would be there.
Yes, we do. Okay, we'll just move on to the next one. The Space Coast EDC, Pat Bentley is our representative there. I'm the alternate.
How often does that meet?
Once a month. It's at a luncheon.
I'd like that one.
The economic development, yeah.
So I'm going to take me off as the alternate. Do you want to be the alternate?
Do you want to stay as the main?
No, I don't want to be on it.
I'll step in as the main.
Okay, all right, so that's going to be Diana.
Be the alternate.
And
I was going to volunteer as well, so.
Go ahead. No, you.
I'll be the alternate, in case Diana can't make it. But
Okay.
And if you're okay with Ms. Volz, I'd like to be the other alternate on that.
All right.
What's the time on that?
Wait,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we have Diana as the primary, and then we have Volz as an alternate.
She stepped aside.
She stepped aside. Okay, so we have Frampus as an alternate? Correct. Frampus is the alternate. Mr. Frampus, I'm sorry, I mean to be disrespectful. Frampus is the alternate.
Feel any disrespect at all, Mayor? That was Miss.
Austin is the second, okay. Okay, all right, we have that one. Okay, next one.
Did you say the time on what that normally is, Pat? It's a lunchtime. You're going to be able to do a lunchtime meeting? Is that in Rockledge as well? Pat?
We've met at different places,
like
but
it
it's been at the
shifts.
same place that she was referencing Rockledge.
Well, there's
I
also,
guess it's the-
and also I'm the second alternate anyways.
Right. No, I want to know I don't know when the meeting was, and I didn't know if you knew or not, so. Okay.
Okay, next item is the Melbourne Tillman. We have Keith Jordan as that, and he wants to.
And he's on till, you guys just the previous council a couple months back just reappointed Mr. Keith Judon. And so he has a term that goes through 27.
Okay, yep, and he's a good person to keep on there. The Melbourne Tillman Airport Authority, we don't have a seat there, so you're just really a member in the audience. And I've been trying to go to that. I just like to go on my own because I think it's very interesting to go there. I like to know what's going on because I'm nosy.
So is it worth us having it on our, I guess, attending list? If we
Well,
don't have a vote?
Yes.
I know.
And that's true, but someone else might, if they would ever go, they might find it interesting and want to continue going and be the liaison. It's an open meeting, yes.
So, I mean, we could go whether.
You could go. Yes, you don't have to be the liaison.
Diana's point, I would agree that it doesn't need to be on our list.
And I'll just go on my own anyway.
Sure, we all could go if we want.
That'd be fine. Yes, we could. All right, then that's fine. If no one has a problem, we can even take it off for next year.
Just let us all know when it is.
They're Wednesday, fourth Wednesday at 8:30.
Are we scratching it off the list?
Okay, the Melbourne Regional Chamber of Commerce of East Central Florida. Daniel McDowell has been our liaison, and John Ditmore has been the alternate, so we need two new ones.
I'm happy to be a primary for that.
Okay, Diana, okay. And who's going to be the alternate?
I can back her up on that one.
Okay. Okay, the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce. Pat Bentley is the primary, and John Ditmore is the alternate.
I think someone else can take that opportunity.
Okay, who would like to be the new primary?
I can do that one,
Helen, was that you? Yeah. Okay. Okay, and who would like to be the alternate?
I can be the alternate for it.
Okay.
I'd also just anybody can go to that. A lot of times they do.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing that you do. You just have lunch with the folks. And so it doesn't really matter who the lead is because 3 or 4 people usually attend.
We usually have better turnout at the Palm Bay Chamber than Palm Bay does. We got to keep that up, I'm just going to say.
The Brevard County Fire Department liaison, Stephen Frampus is the primary, and John Ditmore is the alternate.
Again, we don't really have meetings that we get invited to. Unless you got more information than I know of, but.
Nope,
I don't know why it's on our list. We don't get invited to anything.
I greatly appreciate that several of you are looking at me as if this list came from the city manager.
No, I know. I just, some things I don't even know why are on here.
I'm honored, but I did not create this list. So really, if the will of the group tonight is to strike some of these, because I think to Councilman Frampus's point, some of these committees, like the Brevard Fire Department and the airport, are, we don't have a sitting voting membership seat. It's just a, kind of open invitation, as any public meeting is, to attend. And so if we want to if we want to strike these, and then, as issues come up and council members want to attend and report,
I
think
the only time we had a meeting and you represented us. So I wasn't even, I think we strike it.
Well, we certainly can, and any of us can go anyway. Personally, based on conversations we've had in the last year, 2 years, I would like to go so that I'm more prepared when the conversation comes up again.
I agree if there's a meeting that we should go, but there's not a meeting that we get invited to. So to have it as a committee meeting, it's pointless.
No, I'm not saying, I'm
agree. I
saying
think
not
if they
keep
have a
it.
meeting,
I
we
just
should
want to
go.
go.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll just take this off of here. Okay? All right, next one, Florida League of Cities, Transportation and Intergovernmental Relations. That is Diana.
So I did want to update the council. Some of the committees have changed in terms of title and what they encompass this year. So there's been some shifting around, of some of those committees. The new committees, I don't know if we want to necessarily tackle them based on what's on this list, or if we just want to put on this list ones that members are currently serving on from this council. Because our new members, unfortunately, they're not adding new people to the committees at this point because we're making our policy, solidifying our policy statements in like 2 weeks. But for next year, it would be something to research and consider, and I think it's worth getting involved. But I would say maybe only include on this list the new committees where we currently have council members serving.
All right, and do you know the new name of your committee?
I do, but I am not serving on Transportation and Intergovernmental Relations. I am serving on Finance and Taxation.
They picked all the committees already?
Yeah, that was picked a month and a half or 2 months ago, because we've had 2 meetings now.
We've only got one meeting left.
Right. And I'm also it's no longer called the Land Use, and it no longer has the same name. They've renamed them. So, and I was about to update that, but I don't even have the name of it here.
I'm looking at it. Is that Development, Code Compliance, and Redevelopment?
No, it's transportation. It's something in
Intergovernmental Relations, Mobility, and Emergency Management?
That's it. That's exactly what it is, right?
Happy to help.
What a title.
Thank you.
Intergovernmental Relations.
Intergovernmental Relations, Mobility, and Emergency Management?
All right.
Wow.
5 times.
What's even fun is watching people sign up for these and they didn't realize different topics have shifted under the committees, and I think people got a little disappointed or frustrated, but we'll work it out again.
I can go back later and correct the descriptions too.
Sure.
Not a problem. And I think Mr. Bentley is on, are you in utilities?
It was called Municipal Administration.
Oh.
I don't know what
Municipal
it's.
Administration, and I'm switching next year to
So
anything else.
Now his committee is Municipal Operations.
Ouch.
Operations, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any other members currently serving on a committee?
I don't believe so. I think we're the only three.
Okay.
Finance, no, those are blank. Okay, Board of Adjustment Liaison, Stephen Frampus is the primary, and I'm the alternate for the Board of Adjustment. That only meets once or twice a year. Would anyone, Mr. Frampus, do you want to keep that position?
I'm okay letting it.
Okay,
I'm happy to step into that one.
all right, good. Diana's the new alternate. The Business Advisory Board, Helen Volz is a primary.
Are you?
Sorry?
Would be the primary.
I thought you were going to keep it as the primary.
I said I'm okay letting it go.
Oh, misunderstood. Diana's the primary. Okay, all right, thank you.
Just need an alternate.
And then who would like to be the alternate for the Board of Adjustments? It's an evening meeting, so it's generally after work hours.
Is that a hint? I can be the alternate for.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Next is the Business Advisory. Helen Volz is a primary, and I am the alternate. Helen, you want to stay as the? Okay, I'd like to give up being the alternate. Who would like to be the alternate?
I can alternate that.
Okay. I think that's perfect since you're a business owner. Absolutely. All right, Code Enforcement. Helen Volz is the primary. Stephen Frampus is the alternate.
I'll give up the alternate slot.
All right. And Helen, do you want to stay with Code Enforcement, or do you want to stay with that? Who would like to be the new alternate for Code Enforcement?
I can be the alternate for code enforcement.
Okay, all right.
Okay, now she's typing all this, and I'm like, okay, now who's where?
Yeah, we'll get an up. Megan will let us know who's on first. The last one is Planning and Zoning. Diana Adams is a.
Parks and Recreation.
I think we
Oh, and we missed it, you're right, and I even circled it. Parks and Recreation, Helen Volz is the primary and Daniel McDowell is the alternate.
I'm interested in either position.
Do the regular, because I don't want all three of those.
The regular, as opposed to
I'll have the
irregular.
primary.
Okay, Frampus, okay.
I can have the alternate, I'll do the alternate.
Ellen, if you didn't want to do the alternate, I can also do the alternate if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, well, that was fast.
You want anything? You left out all this.
No, I'm on one of them.
She didn't spend time.
I'm on one.
Yeah, that was no time at
Okay,
all.
so on the Parks and Rec, Mr. Frampus is the primary and Mr. Gaylord is the alternate. Okay, Planning and Zoning, Diana Adams is the primary and I'm the alternate. I'd like to give up alternate.
I'm happy to also switch out if someone else is interested.
When is that meeting?
It's on a Wednesday, isn't it this, like, third Wednesday of the month is the Planning and Zoning?
Yeah, it's typically either the second or the third. We try to put it so that
Change sometimes.
it does have to stay. It is the one committee that does stagger a couple of times a year between the second and the third week, depending upon when the council schedule is, so that we can be able to take action from that meeting.
All right, so who would like to be the primary?
I can primary that.
Okay. Alexis. Primary, and who would like to be the alternate?
I can alternate.
Oh, good, okay. Jump right in with both feet. Here you are. Participation. Okay, all right, thank you. I think we have covered all of them. At least all I have on my list here. Clerk, just down in the various courts, okay. So we need a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2024-25. Who would like, oh, Ms. Adams?
I will make a motion to approve 2024-25.
And do I have a second? Oh, Mr. Frampus?
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the liaison assignments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations on all your assignments. Okay, all right, council reports. Diana Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things to review because we did not have an earlier November meeting. The Parks and Rec, or the Parks Master Plan workshop that we had, I thought went relatively well. It was great to see our new council members still being active in that before you came on board, so I appreciate that. I know in terms of our next steps, Mr. Rohde, that's coming forward at our next meeting.
So it'll be coming forward in December, the second meeting in December. It'll be all wrapped up and ready for presentation.
I thought that process went really well, so I just appreciated that from staff's perspective. The League of Cities did have our second legislative policy meeting that I just referenced a few minutes ago. We do have one left during the Legislative Policy Conference that's coming up in early December. Each committee will be solidifying its policy statements, things that the League will be advocating for in terms of each of those committees. So I know that Mr. Rohde had created for me a nice little outline about things that West Melbourne, from a staff perspective, but also input in terms of priorities from this council, that would be included in that. So each committee was given from all of the cities that chose to submit priorities. We did get to submit in terms of West Melbourne, so I know committees are still working those out. The goal is to have those solidified in December to have them for the league to move forward with their advocacy efforts. The Courtyard Melbourne West had a relaunch today, and I know a couple of us had attended. Really well attended, and I'm just mentioning that because I want to say he was the director for the Southeast region for the Courtyard, had showed up for this particular event, and he said, granted he had only been there I think 2 or 3 years from what he had stated, but he thought it was his most well-attended relaunch from their hotel, so that was exciting. West Melbourne totally got to take some credit for that, so I just wanted to mention that. We did a farm share distribution in another city a month ago on the 22nd that all food, I want to say, was gone by 12 o'clock-ish. And we do have one coming up for the city of West Melbourne this Friday, early morning. I think the truck is supposed to get there around 7, so if you're choosing to volunteer, it's going to be a great time.
I agree.
Drink some coffee, show up, we got it.
Maybe I'll make it by 8:30.
All right, well, maybe I'll see you at 7, maybe I'll see you at 8, but that will start at 9. The PD always does a really nice job of stacking up those cars because people get there really early, even though we don't start until their posted start time. But that always happens to be a really good event, and FarmShare has given us feedback, you know, for the, I think, 2 years that we've done this now in West Melbourne, that this continues to be at the community park their best location in terms of where they prefer to be in all of Brevard County, because it's so well handled with traffic. It's an easy place to pull in and out of. We have a lot of stacking through Max Rhodes Park. So just all around good things, but I would expect that to go well on Friday. And then we always have fun. I think it's a great time. I've never been hit by a car yet.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's a good time.
You had to say that, didn't you?
Yeah.
We'll see what happens on Friday. And the PD always gives me a nice little security vest to wear, so I'm at least a little more noticeable by the cars.
Oh, that's good.
And then just a final note, congratulations to Mayor Young, and also welcome to Austin and Alexis. Thank you for stepping up to serve our community. It's exciting to see more young people get involved in the civic process, and it makes me happy. In a weird way, to no longer be the youngest elected official in Brevard County. That's exciting, because that means there's people coming up after you. So thank you, I appreciate that. That's my report, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Wolf.
Well, I have not been to the Friday event, and I'm going to be going on Friday, so I don't know if I'm going to get there at 7 a.m. My dogs need fed first, so but I will be there. So I'm excited to go there for the first time, and I just really I just wanted to thank the voters for voting for me and for the next 2 years. So I appreciate that, and I knew that since my name was last on the ballot, that it would be a little difficult to be a little higher, I thought, but I was perfectly fine with where I landed. So anyway, really that's about all I have. Pat and I worked really hard out there, 13 days straight, and it was definitely a lot of work, and definitely well worth it. So I appreciate everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Bentley. Deputy Mayor Bentley, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say congratulations to those who ran, and to everybody that ran, and then also to those that won, and new members as well. We've got 2 brand new people on the, is it 2? Yeah, 2 brand new people. So, welcome, and look forward to us all working together as a team. So congratulations to everybody for that. So it's a nice process, except for Steve's part. 1 vote. Yeah. That was a little time-consuming there to get to that answer, but I'm glad to see.
You know what? It was very interesting. It was a process that a lot of us don't ever experience, and I wish it wasn't me, but it was a good experience to learn, and it was actually kind of neat.
Yeah, it was. I think it was educational for a lot of folks. I'd never been to a supervisor of elections place like that and watch them actually do vote counts and see their logic behind everything. And one thing, I'll mention this, then I'll be done. One thing I did think was really incredible about the process is I felt no matter who wins, I believe the vote count is accurate. Yes. It was that impressive, their process, that they follow. You think, well, who you want may not win, but the answer is the answer, and I think it's true. Yep. Thank you.
I did want to mention, I learned about the way that Florida handles ties, and so that was really interesting. I wouldn't have done that otherwise with the coin flip, but I did not mean to slight the other people on council that won recently, so congratulations on that. I was just recognizing our 2 newest.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mr. Gaylord.
Nothing to report. I just want to say thank you to the council for the warm welcome, and thank you to the residents, all the ones that showed up tonight, and all the ones that are still here. Really appreciate you guys coming out and talking to the council. So,
Ms. McGuire.
You skipping me?
No, you're last. Oh, no. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. There was a lot of support for the election and just beyond, and even you guys like Austin said, with the warm welcome. I'm excited to learn, take it all in. I mean, I've been coming to meetings for over a year, but I'm excited to keep learning and keep growing and continue this for the next 4 years and on. So thank you guys.
4 years and on. Okay, I got that. All right, good for you. Okay. All right, Mr. Frampus.
You know, I appreciate everybody that goes out and votes and does their civic duty. So that was a great thing. It was an interesting process. Glad to be here for another couple of years. And I did want to point out that when I got on council, it was a pretty good learning curve. You know, there's so much that we need to learn when you first get on council because you really don't know. And I think that maybe we should have a workshop or something for new council members, for us just to have an open forum to be able to discuss different questions. And maybe, I think it would be helpful to the new members, and maybe a couple of the people been here could learn something else from it, maybe an hour or two, and where we could just sit around and discuss things. Like, it's like your notes. If you share your notes, it's a public document. You got to save it. If you don't know that, you might take it home and destroy it. But if you don't share it, it's not, and you can throw it away when you get home. So it's like some things that it's nice to know that we might not know that we could discuss in a workshop. So maybe we can consider it and have one in December or January or something. So something to think about.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Is that all? Are you good? Okay. All right, so my turn, and I just don't know what to say. I am so thrilled to be here. This seat fits me. It's about time I'm in this seat. So thank you, Pat, for keeping it all nice and warm for me. So I am honored. I am humbled. I'm very thankful to be here. Thank you for staff. Thank you for all the help that you've been giving me very much for staff. And thank you and congratulations to a council. I'm looking forward to 4 great, fruitful, and productive years. Thank you, well, mainly for being prepared for tonight. Thank you for knowing it was your first meeting, the 2 new ones especially. It was your first meeting, and you came and you were prepared. You were ready to work when you got here, and I appreciate that very much. Congratulations to Mr. Bentley for being the deputy mayor. It's not like you're not qualified. So thank you very much for being that. Thank you very much. And really, I'm sorry. I went to the Marriott event tonight, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I got a private tour there from Leah, and she said just to pretend the party was for me. So I did. So I just had a great time, and it was nice of them to give me a party. And it was just for me, all these people here, right. And Mr. Bentley, Mr. Frampus, you and I went to the waste management, out to the MRF, out to the recycle thing, and that was great fun. That's right, you were there. You were there as well. Okay, so the 3 of us went out there, and it was great fun. We had a great time, and was happy to see recycled garbage going around. It smelled wonderful. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Anything else for the good? Any questions for Mr. Carey or for our city manager or for, I was going to say chief, but I can't do that anymore.
I just have 2 quick items, but I'm still processing we had a great time and had a lot of fun at the MRF. That's still registering my head, that comment, the MRF is the recycling center, and it's a very neat place, but I don't know that they've ever had a lot of people have a fun time there. So
we actually ate there, and we ate there too.
And you ate at the MRF, so.
Recycle, we ate.
You've given me something else to process now, so I appreciate that. Just want to say on behalf of the staff, and I know they're gone, but very appreciative to be able to work with both Danny McDowell and John Ditmore. I think they did a great job for the community, and we appreciate their service. And certainly want to congratulate the new mayor, congratulate the new deputy mayor, and congratulate the new elected officials this evening, and also echo the sentiments of others, and appreciative that other people were part of the process and went through that. And I think that's a great thing for our community that so many people were interested in that, and I think that's a positive. Want to give thanks and a big kudos to Mark Piccirillo, our projects manager. The 2 items that he had this evening, both of them have been a very heavy lift. both the switchgear and the gas line debacle, that he was able to come up to just amazing solution, a cost-effective method to keep that project moving forward in a difficult situation. And he also did a great job putting the proposals together and getting every penny, and certainly saved the city on both of those items, probably total of $100,000 in his efforts to get that process just perfect the way we needed it. And so I did want to mention that he did a great job with that. And in budget, which is really good. And those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carey, anything?
No, thank you very much. And as others have said, congratulations to the newly elected members and the returning members.
All right, thank you. Chief Vesta, so I was at, not Arrowwood anymore, Arrowwood, what is that now? Not Palm Shores.
Palm Lakes?
Palm Lake Estates, yes. And they were asking, some of the people there who are now going through the police academy were saying what a good idea it would be if the chief or if Brittany Rao could develop a program and do it on the Promise campus.
Oh.
To get a much better relationship with the promisers. Apparently there's a need for that. So I said that I would mention it, and I can't think of a better time since you're right here.
We will look into that.
Mention that, a special program.
The successful CPA, and the graduates will be here at the next meeting to be recognized for their participation. So
okay.
We'll take that on.
They were very excited about that they went through that. They loved it. Absolutely.
Great, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. That's it for the good of the... motion to adjourn or just get up and go home? That's it. We're done.